everything, and I'm not whispering from over here, because the camera's over there, looking at me over on this table. I just thought it would look nicer here. Lighting isn't great. I maybe could have turned off this light so the light on these things would be a little better. But I already started recording. I thought the more light, the better. Anyways, so you probably already saw from the title and what I'm doing. However I title it, it'll be probably clear. But I'm going to do this ASMR thing where I want to talk about Star Wars. And obviously you can see these two packs here. The pack of I have the pack of the original trilogy over here, and the pack of the prequel trilogy over here. So, I got these like for Christmas, and I haven't watched them yet. I have seen all of these movies before, and I figured I wanted to, I've basically been basing most of my opinions on all these movies from having seen them, years ago now. I haven't seen these movies in years, and I kind of wanted to revisit them. I'm more excited, honestly, to revisit the prequel trilogy, because those I only saw like maybe once or twice for most of those, and I hated them. And I don't know if that's just been solidified by everyone else kind of hating on them, or if, I actually did just dislike them that much. So I'm really excited to see if these are better like now. And then the original trilogy, I've seen these a number of times. It still has been a while, so I feel like I forget details a lot. But these packs both have Blu-ray and DVD. I'm watching the DVDs because I don't have a Blu-ray player, but I think that was the only way you could really get these packs like this, whoever actually got them, found them. And I think that means they're going to be like the special editions, which, or something like that, some extra edition, as almost every edition is a little different, as I've heard. And to address that right up front is that I don't necessarily think that I need to watch, every single different version. I used to watch the VHS versions before, which I hear even those had stuff changed from, like, the theater. Like, no version, like, no home version ever was the exact same as the theater, I've heard, so it doesn't really, I don't know how much that's really going to play into it or not. Anyways, as far as prequels, I don't know if they changed stuff in there or not, and if they did, would you notice? It probably wouldn't be as noticeable in there because of how much was already done with the same kind of technology, so I don't know. But yeah, these are the ones I'm watching off of, and I thought it would be fun to do this in a way so like I can do an ASMR video, because I had that failed thing where I wanted to talk about movies, and it was kind of fun, but I sort of ran out of things to say, and I quickly found out I'm no movie critic, certainly not. So this is more of a thing where, like, if you're not somewhat interested in what I'm saying, you can just kind of half pay attention and just, listen to it as a noise as you try to sleep, or relax or whatever. So the ASMR part of it should help alleviate any real high expectations of having super awesome viewpoints on these. But I always like throwing in my 2 cents on stuff, and knowing that people might actually listen to it is nice, rather than talking into the void or waiting for someone else to hopefully talk with about these that may not have, I don't know. There's probably plenty of people that would want to talk about something like this, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I thought it would be a fun way to both rewatch these and also give you guys some content at the same time, so it doesn't feel like I'm just watching them and not doing anything else. That's always nice. So I guess I want to say this up front also. Spoilers. There's going to be spoilers. These movies are all somewhat old by now. You should have seen them, and if you haven't, you can just not watch the rest of this video and just go watch them, and then come back when you have. Or just not watch this video because I'm not very good. Whatever you want to do. It's up to you. What I'm planning on doing for actually, this is going to be like multiple parts, but I'm probably just going to put them all into one big video, and just splice the parts together. What I want to do is something kind of interesting with it. Now, first of all, I want to watch. I guess my idea is to watch all these individual movies. I'm gonna watch, and after each movie, I'm gonna talk about that specific movie. And after the last one of that trilogy, I'll probably talk about that trilogy as a whole, as well in that video, in that part. And then I'm gonna do, you know, for both trilogies, and then probably do an ending video talking about the comparisons of both, overall thoughts, and wrap it up at that point. And hopefully the video isn't 5 hours long. We'll see what happens. So yeah, like, I don't know that there's gonna be spoilers, and that I'm not very smart, and I'm not a movie critic. So, you know, my opinions are probably not going to be the best, but I thought it'd be fun. And you guys should feel free to share your opinions in the comments and everything as well, and we can have a discussion about it. I might not necessarily remember all my points, so if there's something specifically you want to call out that I said, maybe timestamp it if you do that, so I know exactly what I said, and if that was something I really meant, or if I said it poorly, I don't know, or if, you know, I've reconsidered it based on what you said, you know, and so I can, just so it's a frame of reference for me, so I don't have to rewatch the entire thing myself every time, if you guys choose to do that, which, seeing as how a lot of my videos have gone, it's either, there's going to be no comments, it's going to be a comment of someone who doesn't like me, or it's going to be a comment of someone telling me to do a different kind of ASMR video because they keep doing different ones than the ones people actually want, apparently. Which, I'm sorry, I'll get to those, I'm sorry. Alright. Then, the other thing is, I guess, the order that I'm going to watch these, and I'm debating on this, been going back and forth with myself. And I think what I did decide on is that I'm going to watch it the same way I originally watched them, I guess, is in order of release rather than order of the numbers. So that means I'm going to watch 4, 5, and 6 first, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3, because that's also the context that they were released, and that's kind of, I think, how they were meant to be viewed anyways. As well as how they had to be viewed, really. It would be kind of strange to make these and expect people to watch these before these, you know. It would be a weird thing after these have been out for so long. These were definitely done after, so I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty good reasoning, and you know, there's no happy medium for it, because, you know, part of you wants to go numerically, and another part of you wants to do it in order of release, and either way it's going to be unsatisfying, whichever way you choose. But I'm going to watch, yeah, original trilogy first, and then I'm going to watch the prequel trilogy. And also, this doesn't include the newer ones, you know, like, it doesn't include Force Awakens because I don't have it. Once they do the next, like, 3 movies, if they're doing a trilogy of it, like these other ones, I'll probably talk about those at a different time, possibly. Or just the next main movie, the Last Jedi, I believe is what they're calling it right now. When that one comes out, I'll probably see that and talk about that, I don't know. But, eventually, at some point. But yeah, these are what I'm going to watch. And, I think that's all I really have for preface at this point, except to say that I do really like Star Wars. I think it's a cool universe, and I think it's been really good. It's always fun, and I think it's been exceptional also for, like, because I like video games a lot, so of course it works very well for video games. You can have some really fun stuff with these different, like, pieces, you know, and I don't know, maybe I'll mention more into that when we get to each of these movies and such, but yeah, I did watch the original trilogy of those movies when I was somewhat young. I started watching them, and I'd seen them, you know, on VHS, and then I later saw a few on DVD and stuff, and I don't know, it's not like I'm just jumping into Star Wars for the first time or anything, so, I mean, how often do people jump into it the first time, you know, this late in their life? Not as often as you might think. It's even less often than that, so I don't know if that's everything. And also I don't know where I'm going to be, the locations when I record the parts talking about each of these things, and I don't know when this is coming out or anything or all that, so do be aware that there might be varying audio levels and qualities or something, you know, visual qualities and whatnot. And also, let me just do a little bit of this. Can I do that so that you can kind of see these a little better? Look at that. Look at that. Looks a little lighter that way when you tilt them. So that's everything. Yeah, maybe if this goes well, maybe then we'll just do, you know, more stuff for movies if you guys like the ASMR movie stuff. And not, you know, then I probably won't do it again. But we'll see what happens. And for anyone asking, yes, I'm probably going to do another eating video at some point because people have been wanting that for some reason. And I mean, I can't really hide the fact that I do eat quite frequently, so I don't have a very good excuse not to do those. But I never know how to wrap anything up. Let's go to the next part. Alright, so this one might sound a little weird. Apologies up front. I am recording in my room this time. It's very late and I want to record in a different room right now. So my fridge might make some loud noises. Hoping it doesn't. And also, I just figured, you know, like, try and change it up. Here's these pictures that I got from like a Star Wars book thing that I don't have anymore, but I thought I would show those off while I talk about this one because I don't know, like it's a change of scenery or something. It might be easier for me to identify the different videos when I look in the previews, and you know, I'm also sitting like awkwardly, like I'm behind the camera and lower than the camera, and I don't know how well it's going to pick me up. I'm also to the side of it, lower, behind, and to the sides. I'm in a weird back corner, so if this has the ability to pick that up as if I'm from back there, it might be a little jarring for you. But that's why I'm trying to talk a little louder anyways. And it's more of a dry mumble. Also, I just woke up, so sorry if I'm a little groggy, but I basically watched the movie and it was cold in the room that I watched it in. Because there's no, it's not insulated, and then I didn't turn the heater on there or anything, and I came back in and, you know, I'm just trying to warm up, and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and here I am. Sorry if any weird noises pop up. And again, if the jarring, like, fridge decides to do these weird snapping noises, I don't know. I couldn't think of a better time to do it, and I didn't want to unplug the fridge for as long as this might be. Because it might melt in there, it might make the problem worse, I don't know. It's weird. But I wanted to get those out of the way. Alright, so, I just watched A New Hope. And, I actually... Well, it's Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. But I believe originally it was just called Star Wars. I don't know if it said Episode 4 anywhere originally in the theater. I've been told at least when it came out, it was just called Star Wars. Not that it matters much now, but it's a thing. And I will say that I do think that kind of shows, though, that it wasn't necessarily always planned to be a series of movies, or necessarily meant to be a huge franchise, even if they wanted it to be. It felt like it was designed, I guess, at least with some duality to it. The movie itself actually is still a standalone, but see, there's that loud noise I'm talking about. Let's go to another one. It actually was designed to be a standalone movie. In a lot of ways where, there it goes. I'm holding them far enough in front of the fridge to make it so you can't hear like that as loudly, but I don't know if I'm going to be enough cushion for that noise. And again, like I said, if you guys didn't already hear in the first part, spoiler warning, so if you haven't seen these, you know, and want to avoid the spoilers for stuff, go ahead. At this point, I think it's too late for there to be spoiler warnings for this. If you're going out seeking a video that has this in the title, you probably already are ready to, you know, you're okay with hitting the spoilers by now, if you haven't already seen the thing, if you're at all interested in even listening to this, I would think. But yeah, I guess as far as that overall thing, the ending I thought was really good, in how they managed to wrap up the movie and still kind of leave it open. Like Darth Vader, like obviously clearly got away alive, so like they could do more. He could come back and do stuff, and the Empire still had he still had a lot of stuff to fight against the Empire. You just blew up their space station, and it's far from having the whole thing be over. And like, I don't know. I guess like that's kind of cool about it, is that it's satisfying and that they accomplished their goal. They did the thing they set out to do. While there's also still like more stuff they could do, and I think that's sort of what made it kind of a great ending for it. Also, it's like, and then more adventures ensued. Like, also I have a similar feeling with like Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one of that one that they were doing. Or I don't know if there was an original movie from a long time ago or something or not, but the ones with Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow, that Pirates of the Caribbean. Like the first one of that was really awesome, and that ending with it was a fun adventure kind of movie going on, and then like it ends with like, oh, and then more adventures could happen, and you don't necessarily have to see those adventures to know that they're awesome, and that they're fun, and that's cool. Like it's just a cool way to end it, and Star Wars definitely something like that with this in A New Hope. I also think, I'll have to watch all these to pick a favorite, but this one has always been my favorite of the original trilogy. I think because it's interesting that it introduces all the characters, and it's how it introduces those main characters and their motivations, and how it it follows them, and it's a satisfying ending and all that. But like I think it did it really well. Where like, oh, you're following them, and you get to know these characters. They're interesting characters. The movie didn't need something else to build up to it, and it didn't need to be just a building block for something else. It could stand alone as its own really good movie. And I think that was something that I always really liked about it a lot. And it's a simpler story, and it gets told and it gets done. And also it has the awesome setting of cool space stuff with lightsabers and, like, I guess if you want to talk in terms of not knowing what Star Wars was when I was first watching it, really, they have, laser swords and laser guns, so it was cool spaceship stuff. Like, that stuff's in there too, and it's a fun, like, adventure, with weight behind what they're doing, and characters that you kind of give a crap about. Like, that's sort of the whole, like, it's not like it's necessarily genius, or brilliant. It's just done very competently, and because of how cool a lot of the stuff is, and because it's done well, and because it caught on, is that it became really awesome. And it was probably a lot more impressive at the time than now, of course, but I still think it's pretty great. And I had an argument with someone about talking about The Force Awakens and how they have the character of Poe Dameron, and the argument was basically that I was saying how Poe Dameron was not the main character of that movie, because they don't follow him for nearly all of the movie he's gone. Even though promotional materials, a lot of other, sources, like, want to try and say he's a main character, the reason I'm saying he's not is because, like, well, he's sort of delve off into the side thing. Maybe you guys are more familiar with this right now, too. We'll see. But, like, he's, if you guys don't know, Force Awakens is basically like the episode 7 of the series, even though it doesn't have the episode 7 in the title anymore. Oh well. But yeah, Poe Dameron, basically, he's in the opening of the movie. I think he shows up again for a couple of other scenes. I need to see it again to really remember and see how much he's there. But my argument is that he's not a main character because he's not in the movie very often, like, only, not just like, oh, there's a lot of scenes to other people where he's not in it. There's, like, he is in not very many scenes, and the percentage of the movie he's in is very far under main character status, under protagonist status. Um, like, I don't know if he's even in 20 minutes total of the film, and I think that's too small of an amount to be considered a main character. And we also don't follow what he does. I guess is the main thing. We don't follow him and what he's doing. That, along with the fact that he doesn't have an arc. He starts off being, general resistance fighter badass, and ends up just being general resistance fighter badass. We don't really learn anything about him. We don't really see him overcome anything or do anything, like that. So all we know is that he basically was a straight line the whole time. And I think the reasoning behind that was because he's sort of like Han Solo in a lot of ways. He's going to be basically filling the role that Han Solo kind of was, that type of character, for these new movies. And I think that's like the reason they didn't use him that much is because Han Solo was in Force Awakens for a lot of it. And so it seems weird that, it just seems weird that they would bother to do that, Like, that they... It seems weird that they would want to... Sorry, I'm getting lost in my own thoughts now. It just seems weird that they would, if they had tried to put them both in there and have them, they could have a dynamic with them, I guess, but they didn't want to have, two of basically the same character and have one of them try to upstage the other and compete. So they kind of had Poe not really in there much. And that's fine. It's just that he's not a main character. The argument the person I was talking to was basically saying that he is a main character because he's important to the plot. And I don't really agree. I mean, I do agree he is important to the plot in the parts that he does and the things that he is associated with, but saying that he is Poe Dameron is a main character in The Force Awakens, that's a bit much. I'm trying to think of a good example, and it's hard to find a good parallel in the original trilogy, but it's like he's I don't know how to say it. He's not, like, I don't know. Maybe like saying like the Emperor is an important character, is a main character in the original series. It's like saying not even the original series. We're talking about one movie. It's like saying the Emperor, I guess, in A New Hope is what I mean. Saying he's a main character in that. He's very important to what's going on. He's a leader of everything, and he's behind the scenes doing all of this other stuff. And he's the reason why all this is the way that it is. Does that make him a main character? I mean, if it's about just plot, if that's the key to it, then that argument would say that yes, he is. But, no, he's not in this because you don't follow him, he has no arc, and, those two main things, and there's probably more criteria to it, and other people probably would be able to more eloquently talk about what is a main character and what isn't. But that's just why I didn't think Poe Dameron was a main character in that. And the reason I bring this up, the whole thing, is because Han Solo then is kind of like the same kind of character, right? And they were saying, well, if this is how you feel, like, you probably wouldn't even think Han Solo is, a main character in A New Hope. And then I was thinking, I was like, well, I hadn't seen it in a while, all the movies kind of blur together, so yeah, maybe he's not, it's possible. And then they laughed at me as if it was completely ridiculous to say that. I mean, he's a very iconic character. I don't know if that makes him a main one by default, Pikachu is a very iconic character from Pokemon. He's not necessarily the main character just because of that. So I don't know, that's I don't know. And it's, regularity is part of it as well as having an arc. And I suppose if the plot has nothing to do with your character, I guess it could still be a main character, but why would you follow that character if they had nothing to do with what the film was? It wouldn't make sense. Anyways, going way off the rails, I feel. Also, my battery didn't seem to be the fullest, so if I get up and check that and it's gonna die, I might try to plug it in or something. We'll see. But I guess it was. That was the thing where, like, Han Solo in this one, I guess, to get to my point finally, is that, like, I feel like he is a main character in that he has, you know, we follow him for a lot of options. We don't know what he does in the beginning, but we have to be slowly introduced to everyone at some point, so we can't follow all of the things they do. But we don't miss much of Han Solo during, like, once we find him. We're kind of with him. We even have a scene with him without the main people. You know, if you count that scene. Or 2 scenes if you count the 1 scene, I guess. I'm thinking, we have a few scenes actually, never mind, there's a few, I guess, sort of. But, like, you know, we're not just tied to him because he happens to be around the other characters that are main characters, you know. And, I guess, like, he has the arc of, you know, only really caring about money. That's when he starts off with, and, like, he's just at Alice to get credits and everything. And, he finds out that, you know, he gets kind of attached to these people and wants a little bit more than, you know, he wants to do something for something, you know, bigger than just whatever's for himself and just doing something for his own, some selfish purposes. He wants to do something for someone else, and that's, like, a big part of it. And, yeah, I mean, that's his arc. And it might be kind of a simple one, but it's effective and it's there, and I definitely feel like he's a main character. And I stand by my argument that Poe Dameron isn't. I just wanted to bring it up, because that's the thing that's been rattling in my head and has been bothering me, and I've been wanting to see this to clear that up. Also, the special effects, we should get to that. A lot of the movie, I feel like, has been left alone. There's some parts where I guess it's probably redone, and you can't really tell too much. But there are definitely parts where you can tell, especially if you remember the other, you know, other versions of it without that stuff. You can kind of tell. There was the scene, they added in the scene where most of it happens in Mos Eisley, really, is probably the worst parts when they do that. And they get there, and it's like, when they first get into Mos Eisley, it's like, oh, look at all this stuff. Like, there's a bunch of weird, like, CG-looking stuff that, like, kind of stands out. It's kind of out of place. And they just kind of throw it all into the frame and shit, and, like, oh, look at all this stuff here, because I guess maybe they always wanted it to be, maybe George Lucas always wanted there to be more shit there, and this was a way to do it, I don't know. But yeah, there's a bunch of that shit there. And then it's like, that's annoying, but it's whatever. And the same way that annoying, it's just kind of, like, silly. I think there's one shot where there's a bunch of stuff that goes, like, in front of the screen, too, and I'm like, I don't know if you needed that either, but whatever. It doesn't hurt anything to do that, it just wasn't really necessary, is the thing. And then there's the scene where they're in the bar, and the whole, you know, who shoots first. And either this one was sped up, you know, happened so fast I didn't really catch it, or they just switched it for this version again, I don't know. But it's like, it looked like Han shot first to me. Or, I guess, Han shot. It didn't look like Greedo shot at all. Because when they zoomed back out, there were no, like, effects or anything to, like, extra effects added on the wall behind Han or anything to be like, oh, look at that, you know, he's here. Like, he shot here, and, like, Han dodged it. It only sounded like one shot, unless they both shot at about the same time. But again, there's nothing that showed that Greedo had shot that I saw, or if it did show, I wasn't able to really see it or process it with my brain. So that was kind of nice that seemed to be fine. Not that it even really mattered in the grand scheme of what was going on. That's a very minor thing. But it does seem like it would make more sense that Han caught him off guard rather than having weird lightning-like reflexes to dodge that, because it doesn't seem like he was necessarily like, you know, some kind of weird, like, ninja. You know, he was more smooth-talking scoundrel guy, whatever. And then there was they did leave in the scene where he meets Jabba, and that one always kind of bugged me, that he's talking to Jabba on the planet. He says kind of the same stuff he already said in the bar, like, moments earlier, for a large part. And I guess the one thing that's good about it is that it establishes why Han doesn't, you know, just go right back immediately to Jabba, and have to deal with that stuff at some point, I guess, because, like, this is why they worked this out, so he doesn't have to worry about other bounty hunters coming after him at that point. And he doesn't have to worry about getting his money to him right away before he gets killed, you know? But the thing about that is the thing that bugs me is just that it's like Jabba's there and he's tiny. It was originally going to be a dude, just to say it was originally some dude, and they put CG over him, which also stands out against even the restored, like, footage and stuff of the original movies. You can still tell, and it's weird when it meshes it together like that in such a way. I'm sure they could have done it less intrusively, but anyways, it just bothers me simply because he's so small there, and it doesn't seem like a ton of time passes between that and when we see him in his palace. And that's another thing. Well, I guess I can kind of talk about that more when we get to that, but I want to bring it up here because it's here, where, like, he's in a huge, you're used to seeing Jabba being huge, and maybe I'm misremembering his size, but it seemed like he was a lot smaller there than when he was in his palace. I don't know. It was, that was always super jarring to me. And yeah, the scene doesn't need to be there, but they put it in here. It doesn't really ruin anything. And that's generally how I wanted to say about most of the special effects stuff that I noticed anyways. And there's one part in the desert too with the sand people, or someone else pointing this out. I think it might have been Red Letter Media, where they're like, R2 is behind the rocks after the sand people attack, and they're like checking out, you know, scoping out Luke and the speeder just before old Ben comes and saves them. And, like, there's, like, all these, like, extra rocks they added in there. So it's like, how did R2 even get into the little cave? It's not really important, but it is kind of funny, like, yeah, how would he fit in there? You know, like, that is kind of a funny thing that they would do that. And, like, it's, I don't know, it's, I'm trying to think, is it the Red Letter Media, or it was the Cinemassacre thing? Now I don't know. Anyways, the point is, that's the thing that was there. I guess, in general, like, how I feel about the special effects in this movie, as well as just kind of in general, is that most of the additions, while unnecessary and really frustratingly, like, it's annoying to see that this thing that we've known has to keep being changed, because the way we've seen it, you know, the way we originally experienced this stuff, we have memories with that, and when you go altering it, it messes with us, and it's like, it's basically, you know, what we saw originally was a masterpiece. It was a finished thing that we appreciated for what it was. And to try and go back and then change your masterpiece is really upsetting. Like, for me, that's one of the things where it's like looking at, like, Ocarina of Time 3D, and I was like, yeah, they changed a lot of like, the visuals and interface and stuff, but they didn't change the game. Probably a weird thing to jump into if you're not a video game person, but it's like, if they had gone into Ocarina of Time and started changing up, you know, war items, like, basically how I hear Majora's Mask 3D is, where, like, they kind of change how you get some of the items, and, like how or where you get them and when, and like, I feel like that would really take me out of it and upset me a lot for something that I really liked, versus, you know, versus just trying to enhance it with these features without, changing what's happening in there. I guess like beautifully restore it, do that, and maybe try to clean up how stuff looks that's already there. Don't put in extra things. Don't try to add to this movie and try to have them be options. I guess is the only thing. And there might have been an option in the setup menu, but for some reason either my player is really weird when I tried playing it, or the disc is weird. I don't know. But every time I tried to go to the setup, they would just freeze. Even one point during the movie itself, it froze, and I had to like shut the system off and turn it back on again, and then like it worked. I don't know why. I hadn't used it in a while. Maybe that was part of it. It was really strange. But so if there were some options for that, I didn't have them. The thing that about the special effects, though, I guess as just a general thing, is that it's like I didn't hate them as much as I used to. I wasn't as pissed off and like, oh, how could they do this? Because when I was younger, I was much more resistant to change, as was the case with like Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. And I was like, why did they change this stuff? It was good the way it was before. Why did they go changing things around? I don't like that. It's kind of a feeling of that, where it's like, now I'm kind of like, well, okay, I can see the changes they made, and I get it. While I would prefer them to not have made the changes, I don't think they ruin the movie. At least as far as this one so far, nothing happened here where I felt like, wow, they really ruined that movie. It's still great, and these things in here are, unnecessary. They're weird, and they don't mesh well a lot of times, but they don't really ruin anything that the movie does. They're not like they don't change overall how good these movies are, I think, and that's where I land on that. The only things I was thinking of, I'm interested to see if how they tie this in, either in the prequels or later. So I'm probably the prequels where they're going to talk about it. I guess that's where it would happen. But something I never thought about, Uncle Owen. I don't know if he's actually Luke's uncle. Which should be Vader's brother. If we're going to see anything about that, just a little detail that I never saw before, or never caught on to. And like that would be interesting to see if they do something with it and how that works, or if he's someone they said was his uncle. I don't know. I also don't know, like, I don't know, there's a lot of little details in the movie too that, like, I had some of the lines I remembered wrong, and like just little details I didn't really remember that much. So like, I don't know. It just seems weird that I could, some movies you love so much and you think you know them so well, and then you rewatch them after not seeing them for a long time, and you're like, wow, I misremembered a lot of this stuff. So it has been nice so far to start rewatching them. So I am pretty excited to watch the next ones. And it's interesting how you see this, and it's like, I don't know why Vader is on the cover of this. I don't know, like, of the whole movie set thing. Because like you see in the poster up there on the left, where it's like Vader's up there and he's a prominent figure in the background, but the thing is, like, for the most part in this too, it's like he's largely, like, he's not in control. He's a tool for the Empire. He is a badass. He does have a say. He does have some say. But he is largely a tool for intimidation and for fighting. And they use him. And Grand Moff Tarkin is pretty much the guy in charge in this one. So I thought it was interesting that, it's like, oh yeah, like, he's not like ultimate space badass, but also, like, I don't know. It's interesting how they do set this up, and like, even knowing that he is Luke's father, it is interesting. And it's kind of funny how they have a little, like, a moment when they're talking to old Ben. Like, Luke gets taken back to his place after the Sand People attack, and it's like, they were just talking about Luke's father. And he's like, oh yeah, he was killed by Darth Vader. And then they have the message starts playing back, and Leia's talking about you help my father or whatever in the wars with the Republic or whatever. That's my Republic. Whatever. It's like she just starts talking about her father. I don't know the exact line. I'm insane. But her father right after Luke was talking about his father, and it's like, oh, they kind of like foreshadowed that there, I guess, a little bit. But that's interesting. Also makes the thing like he's like wants to bang her is weird also in retrospect. But at the time you don't know that, so it's all fine. Had the other ones, never come out, Vader wouldn't have been Luke's father, and it all would have been a lot different, I guess. And it would have been totally fine, that part. Also, that's interesting. I'm interested to see how that plays out too, where Obi-Wan talks about he talks about Anakin Skywalker, I guess, and he talks about and I don't even think he says his name either. Just says Luke's father. Talks about him and says he's a great fighter and stuff, and a great pilot, and how he was a good friend. And I do really want to see if there's stuff that I missed in the prequels. I'm eager to get to those to see if he somehow is actually a good friend. Because when I remember, he really wasn't, so it's strange that he would remember it that way. But, alright, that's fine. And I don't know what else was going with that. Oh, and one other little note about the whole thing, the one little scene with Jabba. It does make the one line weird also, because they CG'd over him with a little Jabba. It seems weird that later, at the end of that scene, and he's like, it's like, Jabba, it's like, you're a wonderful human being. And it's like, is that a joke because he's not a human being? That the joke is more that he was wonderful, saying that because he's actually not, but now because he's not also a human being either, I don't know. It seems a little strange. Maybe that's just me. Yeah. Also, the one other little detail that sort of bothered me was that, unless it's some thing of they didn't show the passage of time that well, but when Luke gets to the rebel base or whatever, and then it's like, okay, they just have him going into an X-Wing right away and he knows how to fly it. When did he learn how to fly a fucking X-Wing? Was there an amount of time there where he learned how to do it and we didn't hear about it, didn't say anything? Or what? Did he just magically know how to do it because his father was a great pilot and he's flown a little speeder thing on Tatooine? I don't know. That's weird. Also, will it be a little... that kind of bugged me a little bit, but it's whatever. A lot of it's whatever, it's part of the movie. We can assume he probably learned how to do that. Or something, I guess. Again, it's not something you necessarily need to see. It's a detail that would have been good to know, but it's not overall that important to what the movie is trying to talk about, I guess. So a lot of stuff you can just kind of let it go. And I don't know. When did Anakin... Wait, that's a question. When did Anakin want... when did he tell Obi-Wan to give his lightsaber to Luke someday? I don't know if that's a thing that actually happens or not, but I'm interested to see if that'll happen as well. If they tied that up, or... or something. So yeah, I don't know. In like a lot of ways, this movie works way better on its own than in the context of the series for some stuff. So like, it's really great. I don't know. I still really enjoy it, and I think it's all done pretty well. It's all pretty cool, and I like it. And while I can find little details that are like, well, what's with that? I also then find other little details. I'm like, oh, that's nice. You know, like the part where like Obi-Wan's going down and shutting down the tractor beams, and it's like they have the two stormtroopers there, and they're just like having a little banter. Like I don't know why that always gets me. I always think it's really funny. And I don't know. There's just these little moments here and there where like there's fun and like goofy moments there, and they're great. And like it's a fun like adventure thing. And it's, I guess, you know, if you're looking for something real deep in it, you're probably not gonna find that. But if you're looking to have just a fun time, and you know, it's a great little story that was told, and it has an ending that I think is pretty satisfying, and it's an ending where it's opened up for more adventures that may or may not happen, and as you know, they did. So I guess in the next part we'll talk about Empire Strikes Back, and I am very excited to see this if it, because I often hear that Empire Strikes Back is a fan favorite. Usually, most people say that one is better, from what I've heard. Largely because the people I talk to most of the time, I guess, about it like that better. So I'm interested to see if I'll like it better this time around. And hopefully you guys are excited, and hopefully this sounded okay and everything. And that's all the stuff I really wanted to mention about that for now. So I think we're good on this. Again, if you guys haven't seen this, you know, it's great. I do recommend it. I don't know what else to say, so I'll get to you in the next part. Alright, so I just watched Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I'm in a different room now for this one. And on this TV, I'm just, you know, I'm showing the menu thing here because it loops. I might have to hit the button at some point if the DVD player goes to sleep. But I don't know if it'll go to sleep when it's on the menu or not, or if that's just if it's paused for a while or something. The other one did. I don't know. But I guess I just wanted to get that out of the way. This is what I'm doing. Depending on how long I talk, I might have to hit the button to do that. So if it goes to the DVD thing, whatever. Heads up. Also, it's muted. Hopefully I don't get any weird copyright thing just for showing these bits. They're probably going to show some clips. They're not really going to spoil anything, I don't think. But we've already been warned about spoilers. And it's been a few days since I watched Episode 4. So this one, you know, picks up a little while after that. They've established a new base on Hoth. And I mean, Christ, everybody knows Star Wars stuff by now. And if you don't, I mean, I don't know. You will when you watch it. But yeah, basically it kind of just jumps ahead a bit, and they're all established on Hoth. Seems that the characters have had time to kind of get to know each other a bit more, and they're more comfortable with each other. It kicks off with, you know, a search for them. A probe droid finds them. They actually end up having a big fight on Hoth. They have to, the rebellion has to abandon that, and you know, Luke goes off to do his training with Yoda, because he has a vision from Ben, and because of the pursuit, they pursue Han, Leia, and, you know, the rest of the guys, other than Luke and R2. They pursue the rest of them in the Falcon, and they have to fly away, and like they end up going to. I'm sorry, I just ate a little bit ago, so if my stomach makes weird noises, I can't make it not do that. And it seems to be doing it right now, so that's great. Also, I'm off to the side, so if it sounds like it's only coming out of one headphone or something, it's because I'm off to like the left of the camera right now. Should have said that in the beginning, but it's a sloppy ASMR thing. What are you gonna do? So basically, like, there's the two, like, splitting, like, the splitting of the characters, and then all kinds of crazy stuff happens, where, like, you know, they didn't get to the rendezvous point, and ends up, like, you know, I don't know, I'm explaining too much of what happens in the movie, when, honestly, you should just watch it, or, let's be really honest, probably already have seen it, and I guess I just wanted to kind of point out some stuff, like, that I liked, I like the movie, it's not as good as I remember, honestly, which is kind of a surprise. It's good. It's very exciting. A lot of action, a lot of cool set pieces, and you know, interesting things that unfolded. I have, you know, I don't know, like the way things have progressed. Like it's got this bonus thing of, you know, it's a sequel, right? So it has the luxury of, like, okay, we don't need to establish, you know, all this stuff again. We already have kind of like the universe, this other story, the characters, everything's already kind of been established and set up from episode 4. Man, it's windy. And so, like, if you watch that, you know, you're already caught up, or you should. So they can get right into doing stuff. And that's kind of what they do, I guess. So there's a lot of action happening, a lot of things unfolding because of, you know, everything's already set up, and then, you know, running around, you know, making plans, making deals, doing tactics, and I guess this one is a little different because, yeah, it is like a thing where, like, the rebels are a real threat now. Like, the Empire is pissed at them, they're chasing them down, and you know, they're all on the radar, they're all on the map, and yeah, so, like, it feels like there's, like, heavier, like, stakes now, I guess, in that, you know, this is serious, and we're starting to unfold things. This is where we have the infamous huge spoiler that everyone probably already knows. Again, I don't feel bad, the spoiler warning was at the beginning of the whole video we're doing, so you find out that Vader is Luke's father. You find out more about how the Force works. There's the introduction of Yoda, introduction of the Emperor. Vader is very much in command in this movie. I feel like this, in a lot of ways, is like, when you think of Star Wars, a lot of the stuff from here is what you think about. Aside from, there's no Death Star in this one. Almost all the other Star Wars things, you know, you're used to thinking about are, a lot of them are from here, or established here. And I do think, one little note, a minor thing of that, like when Yoda's talking about stuff that happened before that would be in the prequels that, you know, we're going to get to. I feel like, since I have seen the prequels and know about that stuff, like, what I will say is that I think those actually did add a little more weight to the perspective of Yoda, I think, in that, like, he knows what happened with, like, not just he knows, but we also know, like, what happened with Anakin, and, like, how that went wrong, and that's maybe why he's so reluctant to train anyone else, and to, you know, do that again. It's because of what happened before, and I feel like he's like, maybe he's, like, sort of looking for an excuse not to train Luke, because he doesn't want to, you know, have that kind of, you know, problem on his hands again. He doesn't want to have that on his conscience. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. So, like, yeah, that's just the thing where it's like, it feels like there's a little more weight to it, I guess. And it's a little weird. What's a little weird, though, I found, like, a little nitpick with that, too, is, like, it kind of, I think, sets up the idea of maybe the whole Jedi thing wasn't a good idea, you know? Is, like, there's one part when he's just like, telling Luke about this stuff, and he's like questioning him, and Yoda's like, it's like, no, you don't question it. There's no why. And it's like, you're supposed to accept it and not think about it. Like, that seems like a really weird way to push that. And I found that to be a little bit like, okay, that's weird. But at the same time, it's also like a thing like I thought it was interesting. It was like you're saying how the Force flows through everything. It's kind of reinforced because Obi-Wan kind of says that also, but it's just like the Force flows through everything, and it's just something that's there that you're kind of like manipulating, I guess, in a way. It's a bit gist of it, and like I guess I use that as a thing where like we talk about people using like lightsabers, and you're like, anyone can use a lightsaber, because Han uses a lightsaber at one point to cut open the Tauntaun, and it's like, and people, the thing that a lot of people think is that only Jedi use lightsabers, that for some reason only people who can use the Force, which are Jedi, use lightsabers, and that's not true, even if they usually use it. The thing is, lightsaber is a tool. It's a weapon. It's not like it is somehow controlled by the Force. So it's not like anybody who uses a lightsaber is necessarily Force sensitive, which we're talking about, like, people talked about that with the whole Force Awakens thing. Where they were like, it's not like everyone who uses a lightsaber in there necessarily is going to become a Jedi. Just as, like, Han doesn't become a Jedi in this just because he picks up a lightsaber, right? Like, that's not how it works. It's just a tool you use, and, like, that's the thing. And I found a thing weird where it was like, that's just the thing I want to point out. It's like, that's like the weird, like, fallacy thing that goes on a lot, where it's like to assume like anyone who uses a lightsaber therefore must be a Jedi. You shouldn't necessarily assume it. Basically what I'm saying is, as far as I know, all Jedi use lightsabers, but not everyone who uses a lightsaber are Jedi. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah, anyways, and I guess I was confused for a long time on what a Jedi was also, which I think is still kind of mucked up, but the idea that, like, I didn't ever think people on the dark side were Jedi. I thought they were Sith. I thought that's what a dark Jedi was a Sith, but it's just someone who uses the dark side of the Force is still a Jedi. They're just like evil or something. I don't know. It's weird. It's a whole thing. And it's not really gone into too much here either, I guess, but like, it's not as big of a thing here because there's only like, a handful of people with this ability and stuff. Anyways, I'm getting a little sidetracky. I didn't do setup on this one. This just didn't freeze on me. That was nice, but I didn't try going to setup because I was worried. As far as I can tell, it seems like there are some things they did put in as changes, I believe, but some things they didn't. Like, I don't remember specifically in the original, but I believe in the more original versions in those cuts, there was no Wampa, and in here they show the Wampa. I don't know if that was just a thing that was edited back in to show it, or if that was all like done post and like added in to like show that there's actually a Wampa there, rather than just showing bits and pieces. I thought it was kind of cooler when they didn't show him, or if they just hadn't shown him. If they actually originally did show him, I just don't remember. But like, it would have been kind of neater, and I guess I don't remember seeing it that much, so I feel like they maybe added that in. I'm thinking they did, but I don't necessarily remember that. One thing I did notice is that, they put in some of the CG stuff, like for those scenes of the walkers on Hoth. Some of them were redone, sometimes they weren't. It depends on like the shot and stuff. Like some stuff still looks like it's stop motion-y. other stuff doesn't. And like the one I know that was stood out to me is because I always remember it originally. Is that like when the walker like falls over after like the tow cable thing happens, and like in the original one, it's just like it. You can tell that it's like a model thing that like falls over and like falls to the ground, and it's like there's like a little like model thing that like slumps over, but like they changed it to be a CG thing to give it more weight, and I mean it looks better to do that, but like 'cause it wasn't like jarring that it was that, but the only reason I could tell is because it looked more realistic than the other effect, and that's it's not necessarily a bad change. It's just a change that I noticed. It's probably a good change, even if I didn't really like the way the figure looked that fell down, though. That claymation, stop motion looking thing. However it was done. Probably just stop motion. It probably was not claymation. And I don't know, like, well, another weird, like, detail thing I noticed, not related to that stuff, but, like, the, Vader, like, when they're in Cloud City or whatever, and, like, Han opens the door and he starts shooting at Vader, I guess I find that kind of nuts. It's like, is it somehow with the Force, or is it, like, his gloves, or what? Because he, like, just blocks the laser blast with his hand, which is I mean, it's pretty badass to do, I suppose, but it's crazy, like, can you just do that? I guess I thought he was still susceptible to, blasters, but I don't know. So that's an interesting thing that I don't know how much that has with it. Also the weird, like, force jump thing Luke does. Why can't he do something like that to just jump back up into the little tube, and when he falls out in Cloud City in Bespin, why can't he just jump back up into that tube thing? I don't know. But, that's a kind of a silly moment. And I don't know, like, it's... What was the other detail? I thought there were a couple other that I saw. I don't know if they added stuff in the asteroid belts or not. Might have added some asteroids, I'm not sure. Also, I know there's like a scene like when he falls down in Cloud City. There's one of the versions has him like yelling as he falls. This one didn't have that, so I don't know how many changes there were. It seemed like a lot of stuff was actually left more alone. It was like left there, so like it wasn't as jarring as some other stuff. So maybe this is some weird, version that's like older, but not like the oldest version, obviously. I don't know exactly. I'm not the guy to ask for all the technical details on this. All I know is that when the credits rolled and it said that it was copyright 1980 and 1997, so maybe it's based on that version of the movies, which is as early as they have that where they can master it like this or something. I'm not sure. Yeah, this movie it feels like it's a lot more focused on our characters and learning a bit more about the characters than it is about, moving the story. Because the story is basically just, we're gonna, like, catch those rebels for doing that stuff. And, we need to get them alive. These specific people. They're trying to get Luke, they're trying to keep Leia, they're trying to do this stuff. And, like, it feels a little more personal on that it's more about the characters, I suppose. I hope I'm not talking in a terrible tone for this video or something. I'm sorry if I am. It feels like it's doing a lot of that, and that's fine. But I think it also is almost a little less interesting at times because your characters, like, because you already have so much established with them, we don't learn a ton more about them, and not as much stuff is happening with the actual story itself. So it does feel like a different focus, and I gotta say, I think my biggest complaint for this movie would have to be like just that it feels like it's all set up. You know, it feels like you look at A New Hope, and that's like, oh, it's a nice movie. It's a self-contained. It works as a self-contained thing. To just be like, oh, here's a movie, and like here's like a satisfying conclusion to it. You know, you introduce the characters, do the stuff. There's like a conflict going on, and then they resolve it at the end. And here, this feels very much like a part one. You know, like just like a part of a movie, a part of a thing. Because like the way this ends, ends in a way that is not satisfying to see by itself. Like I watch this and I'm like, well, now I want to watch Return of the Jedi to see what happens. You know, like I want to see where the rest of this is. And I compared it to Pirates of the Caribbean before, where I guess I don't remember if there was a very good conclusion for the second one of that or not. But the same idea that it's like a lot of it is building up a lot of cool, like, you know, it's building up stuff for the next movie. In that sense, you know, Empire Strikes Back, it is building up all of the events and you know, it's leaving you with a lot of loose ends to then, you know, interestingly tie up in the next movie. And it almost feels like it ends a little abruptly, too. It doesn't feel like a satisfying ending. It feels like well, I guess we'll have to wait until this actually concludes in the next movie. And I think that's part of why I don't really like it as much. I guess. And also, it's one where I feel like you kind of need the context of the first movie for this one to be as good as it is, as well. You can't just... I mean, you could just jump into this and probably really like it, but, you know, you don't have as much intimacy, like, you don't know the characters as well yet in the situation, and it doesn't feel like just a separate story going on in the Star Wars stuff like that, a separate adventure that followed. It feels like, you know, it feels like it's a continuation of the previous adventure that didn't really need continuing from where that ended, and then this one doesn't end. So, I don't know, it's like, this is a middle piece to what, you know, the beginning would have worked as a self-contained thing, and this one, and I'm pretty sure the way the next one's gonna go, Return of the Jedi, I'll wait till I see it to really say, but it seems like that's also gonna be the same thing, where it's like, you know, you couldn't watch Return of the Jedi just cold, and then not, you know, without watching Empire Strikes Back, to set it up, you know, and yeah, the only way I could see really watching Empire Strikes Back and really enjoying the shit out of it, without seeing the first one first, without seeing A New Hope first, would be if you already seen A New Hope enough times to know what happens. You're like, I'm gonna skip the introductions, and I'm just gonna get to see Empire Strikes Back, and then I can see you enjoying this movie more, because you don't have to sit through the stuff that you already know. You already know because you've seen it enough times where it's established to you pretty well in your memory. So that's one of my complaints. And so far, in a conclusionary way, I will say, I like A New Hope better than Empire Strikes Back. A controversial opinion, but I like A New Hope better than this, because it had a satisfying ending, and it was really interesting, good way to introduce things, it had some good action and fun adventure, and then had a satisfying ending. Where this one has a bigger scale, it has the advantages of not needing those introductions, but it takes those advantages and then just kind of, you know, it doesn't take full advantage, I guess, because it could have also had a similar ending where it's like, here's a satisfying thing that we did, and the closest you get is that they, you know, break free of the Empire's grasp, and are reunited, and you know, no one died, but I mean, Han's also, like, he's been taken off and it's like they have to go save him. So like they're not really all reunited. So it's not really like necessarily even like a really a happy ending kind of thing either. It's not satisfying. It's not like happy. It's not. It's barely an ending except for that the movie's done after this stuff happens. So like, I don't know. It needs some work, you know. The characters are really good in it, but the story stuff in it, I think, needed some work. It felt like kind of like an action fest that was like, get ready for the next one when shit really goes down, because now we have it all set up. And I feel like that was also like a way to be like, so they don't have as much to set up in the next one as well, so they can just get to more action and then get to the conclusion. This is like the action-y middle. And I think the next one's going to be like the action-y conclusion, where the first one felt like it was more of like a build-up into action and a conclusion, and it was a setting, you know, it was a jumping-off point for a sequel. And I think the only reason they got away with a lot of this, too, is because it did so well, and they knew they were going to do another. And people were like, I'm on board. So, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on that. I'm trying to make sense. I'm trying to, you know, and not sound like a dick, because I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on a lot of this, or, you know, a lot of people love Empire Strikes Back the most of the Star Wars movies, and, you know, those are just my 2 cents on it, so, well, I think that's everything, so I guess I'll see you guys in the next part. The Return of the Jedi. Alright, I don't know, I've just been trying to pick different locale. You can see in there, can't you? I'm trying to pick different locales for this sort of, to try and make each different little section look a little different. Don't know how well that's going to work. So there's been a bit of a gap. I watched pretty close together A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. And then there was a bit of a gap here doing other stuff, and now I just watched Return of the Jedi. So I figured I should talk about that, and maybe just put it roll on the same part of talking about the original trilogy as a whole, I suppose. So Return of the Jedi, I was watching that, and I guess the general consensus that went with this is that a lot of people are like, yeah, it's okay, it's got some stuff that people don't like, but it does kind of tie up the story nicely. And I think the big complaint people had was the Ewoks in this movie, and I sort of get why. They're sort of stupid and annoying in a way, but they're also, I think, rather inoffensive. They don't seem really incompetent. They seem to play a part. There's stuff that they do. I don't think that they you know, ruin the movie. I think some people have this idea, though, that they're like, I could see the movie without him, you know? Like, I can understand. I mean, some people are like, how would you even do it then? If you just didn't have the Ewoks, how would they have, you know, gotten through and done stuff on speeders and gotten to, like, the base and done all that or whatever? And it's like, the simple answer, I guess, I mean, like, what they want you to say is be like, well, then, you know, like, they want you to be like, oh, I guess you can't, because then all that stuff doesn't work without the help of the Ewoks. But the real answer is that, you know, they would just write it differently so the heroes could do it. It's not like the heroes are going to fail just because the Ewoks aren't there. They wouldn't write it that way. But I did find them to be pretty inoffensive. I don't know, I thought they maybe were a little silly, but at the same time, it was like, it didn't feel like, you know, the Ewoks were, they didn't really feel all that stupid, I guess. Like, they inhabit the place, I guess, and, like, whatever. They write it in an interesting way, I suppose. I guess I don't really have a problem with that. But I understand why people would. They are a little silly. And it's kind of harder to take in because of that. But whatever. Yeah, personally, I didn't really mind. That's just me. And yeah, I mean, like, the opening is pretty cool, though I do think it's a little odd that Luke is all of a sudden, like, a Jedi Knight. Like, he's just like, oh, he's, like, all trained now and knows how to do everything. That's a little weird. I feel like we missed some important development there. He just can do all this stuff now, and I don't know. I at least think that they handle him well enough where he doesn't feel like he's necessarily. He believes that things are going to work out, but I think they play it in a way where it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the movie believes and what everyone believes. And I think that's a good way of putting it, where it's like the audience is never like, there's no tension because of course all this is going to work because he's a Jedi now, you know. And I think that's pretty interesting. And I mean, I don't know, you got some good stuff with your characters going on still. You got you know, it's all good stuff. It's just that, you know, it's sort of like a little bit of like, okay, we gotta wrap things up, so we gotta plan what we're gonna do, and we gotta go do it. And the beginning of the movie is kind of nice in the smaller scope of let's get reacquainted with everyone in the events of what happened before, and get everyone back together. This nice little personal mission, personal victory for all these characters, and then move on to the bigger things. And there's a lot of good stuff with the Emperor in here. We get to really have him be part of the show here, and he's pretty awesome with that. I think he fits his role really well. This really evil, manipulative dude, and that stuff's pretty great. And I guess this is where we have the confirmation of the reveal that Vader is, in fact, Luke's father. We have the reveal of Leia being Luke's sister. And I know these are spoilers, but I believe I said in the beginning there's going to be spoilers, so you were warned. And yeah, I don't know. They kind of confirm all this stuff. They kind of tie up the weird confusion and mystery going on there. And I don't know. It's good. I don't really have a whole lot to say. I mean, as far as criticisms and stuff, there is a weird thing. They did some weird changes with it with the special editions here, obviously. I mean, there's changes in every edition, but there were a few that I noticed. They have that whole, like, scene in Jabba's palace with this band thing, and I believe there was some kind of band number or something before. This is something I don't remember what it was before. It's a new song, though, I believe. A new song, and CG people doing it and stuff in this one. I don't know why, but I believe that it was totally new, because I don't remember that from the original ones. And it's very clearly, like, all CG dudes in that. And then there's, like, I think the other thing that bothered me, though, like, was the ending of the movie. Was that in the end of the movie, they, oh, by the way, I want a quick little praise to how they did do that, where it was, like, he doesn't, like, really convert his father back to, you know, being a good dude, and, like, everyone lives happily ever after. Like, he still dies. And I think that's kind of a thing of, like, you know, sort of a thing, like, he wanted to do that, and, like, he sort of succeeded, but sort of failed. But at least, like, the whole overarching, like, big thing everyone was trying to do is still, like, a success. I think it's at least an interesting layer to it, I guess, rather than just, like, everything worked out perfectly. I don't know, it's kind of nice, I guess. Anyways, in the ending thing, there's a part where during, like, the ending, like, celebrations and stuff, they have a new song there, and it's not really about is this song better or worse than the other song. The thing is, I remember there being the different song before with the Ewoks, like, chanting and whatever. That song seemed a little happier, I guess, to me, and personally, it's just a personal thing, you know, I don't know how you guys feel about it. And, I don't know, it's weird that they changed it because there's no reason to. You didn't really have to change that. They might have added in some more stuff on the scenes of people celebrating. I don't know. That doesn't really matter. I don't care. And the other thing that was kind of weird, though, and annoying, like, was really, really bad, I think, is just this thing where, like, at the end, you know, like, Luke looks over and he sees the Force ghost things of these people, you know. And there's Yoda and Old Ben, and they're both there. And then there's supposed to be Anakin. And for whatever reason, they decided to put in, like, Anakin from the prequels. Like, why did they, like, I believe it was from the Revenge of the Sith Anakin, they put him in there. And it's so weird. It's so dumb to do that, because it's like, look, I know it's Anakin because I've seen the prequels, and for anyone who maybe hasn't necessarily seen the prequels, but has already seen Return of the Jedi before, probably could put it together that I guess that's supposed to be younger Anakin. I suppose. But the thing is, anyone who hasn't seen Return of the Jedi before, hasn't seen the prequels before, is gonna wonder who the fuck that guy is. They're gonna be like, I don't know, did I miss something? Was it somebody we talked to at some other point in the movie? What the fuck? And Luke, as far as he knows, Vader has only looked like, or Anakin, whatever, he's only looked like, in the Darth Vader suit and with the helmet off. That's all he knows that he looks like. So, how would Luke know who that is? Because could he sense it with the Force? Wouldn't he still be kind of like, oh, or like some kind of reaction to him looking different? And I think the only excuse is that it's like, well, this was the last time that we saw Anakin before he really turned into Darth Vader, where he stopped really being Anakin Skywalker, which is a really stupid excuse, because we didn't see that in these movies, and he still looked like human. Why would he look like his younger self in the Force form? Why doesn't Obi-Wan look like his younger self in the Force form? Whoa, Force Ghost thing. Why do this? Why? But whatever. It doesn't really ruin anything. It's just a head scratcher, and you're like, whatever, just ignore it. And I think, yeah, overall, it's a good movie. I still like it. I feel like there's a lot of things in it that I remember, and that I think I would have forgotten in a movie I didn't like as much. And I guess the only other little detail I remember that was weird, it's nothing I'm all scattered, I'm sorry, but there was the part in Jabba's palace, and they go in, and I guess maybe it's supposed to be like a trap, but it does seem really weird that all of a sudden, like, they go in to, like, save Han, like, Leia's in, like, disguise or whatever, and she goes in there, and, like, in that big hall where everybody was out and partying and all this shit in Jabba's palace is for some reason, like, at night, everyone's just, it's just completely empty, no one's in there at all. You'd think there's going to be people putzing around in there, like it would just be a constant party at Jabba's place, like there wouldn't be a bedtime. But I guess it's kind of to be like a trap, I guess. I guess you just kind of have to assume that. It's stupid that you should have to, but whatever. I don't know. It's silly. Alright, and I think that's maybe all the little details I wanted to mention that I can think of right now. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, Emperor does really well in it. I think he's pretty cool in there, in what he does. And, he gets the same cool character interactions and stuff, and it's interesting. It's interesting, it is. It's good. It's good. Now for the whole rapidy-uppity, I'll hold this, so it's a different section. I've seen now all of these rewatched, and I don't know if I mentioned before, but yeah, like my discs were being weird. I don't know if it was the player or just the discs. I didn't tinker with the settings, so whatever the standard, like, just play the movie was, I watched that, so I had a lot of the stuff thrown in. I don't know if you can take it out or not, but I couldn't. And I just had to kind of remember, and I think because of all the special edition-y stuff, or whatever, all of the changes, what that's basically done is that, it hasn't ruined the movies. It hasn't completely ruined them. A lot of the stuff is really weird and unnecessary, sometimes a little contradictory, but it's never to the point of, like, that ruined the movie. Because the core of the movie is still there. The core stuff still happens. You can't really take that away unless you know, try to actually change what the movies are. And it was really all these little special things that are thrown here and there, or more to try and make it fancier than to change what it is, you know, at the core. And the only real unfortunate part of that means that you can't really, it doesn't feel like it's a work of art, in the sense that it doesn't feel like the details mean anything. Little details here and there don't really mean shit. Even if you reference them later, even if you bring them up in other movies, or like, you know, I don't know, even if you bring up like, yeah, other movies focus just on these little details, these characters, these little like happenings and whatever, details really don't matter here. What matters is the core things that happen, the core messages, the performances, and it's one of those where I think like they're still worth watching. They're still good. General consensus has been that New Hope is basically how did I word this before? I had it worded nicely before. Or I guess, to put it really simply, A New Hope is good, Empire Strikes Back is great, and Return of the Jedi is okay. And I would say that most people will probably have that opinion when they watch it. They'll probably get that out of it. But, like, as far as, like, for me personally, I guess I kind of like them as a descending, you know. It was, New Hope is still my favorite of these, because it's, you know, it introduces stuff well, it's exciting, it's entertaining, and it wraps itself up pretty well, and, you know, it leaves it open for more stuff that could happen, but I think it's pretty well contained in and of itself. Whereas Empire Strikes Back is a sequel, but it doesn't feel like just a sequel as so much as a part one of a two-part sequel. And they do a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of iconic stuff in that. But I think largely I just felt a little... They're very close for me, but it felt a little less, you know, like, good about it as a standalone experience, because it was like, you know, like, I couldn't just watch that and then be like, yeah, I'll just watch Empire Strikes Back and then not watch the you know, Return of the Jedi afterwards, because I feel like I need that closure on it, because I don't really have good closure at the end of it. And even Return of the Jedi you could kind of watch just by itself, because it has the whole ending, but you're missing a lot of details that you haven't watched the other ones before. So, and the main difference being that you aren't experiencing the details that led before it, just like with Empire Strikes Back, you're not really experiencing the details that happen afterwards. So as an experience, it's not as good as standalone watch those, whereas I feel like I could just watch A New Hope and then not necessarily feel the need to push through and watch the rest of them. So, yeah, I have now done a nice refresher of these. And I think every so often people should, if they're a Star Wars fan, to rewatch, or a fan of anything really, to re-experience it at some point and be like, is this still, you know, am I still getting out of this what I used to get out of it? Is it still as good as I remember? And to keep an open mind about it. And, I don't know, I guess these are pretty much still as good as I remember them being. And while I might have more to say about them than I used to, I still, you know, I still haven't really changed my overall opinion, I guess is the point. So, yeah, now we get to dive into the prequels, so that'll be a treat. Let's just keep an open mind. Let's just hope they're not as bad as I remember them being. Weird, just trying to find different places to go, I guess, for different shots, to keep things visually interesting, at least a little bit for you, and to keep them separated from me. Alright, so we've now entered the prequels. I've just watched episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and I don't know, man, I came in with an open mind. I was actually kind of excited, believe it or not. I was like, wow, I'm going to get to see these again. I'm going to have an open mind because I barely remember them, and it's going to be cool because it's going to be like, maybe there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff I never noticed or appreciated before, and I think I was more excited just because of how little I remembered. And started watching it and everything, and I was immediately having a lot of questions about it. Questions like, okay, well, it's like a weird little detail ones, I guess, but it was like, why did they, this is like in the first, 10, 15 minutes, and it's like, so they went into this spaceship in space to negotiate this trade dispute. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they go onto that ship, and then they get attacked on the ship, which is also kind of a goofy thing of like, oh, they have this room where they vented gas in there, poisonous gas. How they know the gas is poisonous immediately, I don't know, but I guess, the regular media probably covers this stuff way better than I do. They've already made jokes about these. But yeah, like, how do they know it's poisonous? Why would it be safe gas if it was leaking in there? It's just like, how would you identify it just by looking at it? I don't know. Why can they see it? Why don't they use a gas you can't see? I guess that's for the audience. Anyways, they put him in there for what seems to be like a minute to the audience, and then they decide to send the droids in to destroy what's left of them, which is the line. And why would you not just dispose of the bodies? Why would you need to destroy the bodies further before disposing of them? Why not leave them in there until they're dead? Another excellent question is, why on this sophisticated ship does your conference room have the ability to vent poisonous gases into it to kill people, yet doesn't have a camera to confirm if they've even died? So they escape through that. They do weird force thingies. They have that weird force run thing they do in the hallway there that they then forget they ever had earlier, which they could have just had them run quickly to the side rather than do that. I don't think it would have made a huge amount of difference since they can keep deflecting shots anyways. They do that, and then they end up making this plan to stow away on these droid ships. And basically, I guess, go down to the planet of Naboo, and then they go there and find Jar Jar or whatever. That's his whole own can of worms. I don't think I need to go into that too much, but then they're like, oh yeah, I'll take you down to the city underwater or whatever with all the Gungans, and it's like, okay, and they just take all these space snorkels or whatever so they can breathe underwater. Why the hell did they have those space snorkels, was the question I thought. They went into a spaceship in space to negotiate the trade dispute, and where they would not need a snorkel. They then hitched a ride on these droid ships so they could get out of there, since their ships they couldn't use anymore. Droid ships were droids who would not need to breathe underwater, so they would probably not have that equipment on the ships. And then they just have them on the surface. Is that just a Jedi tool that they have now, like standard issue? Like, oh yeah, you just need to bring your lightsabers and your space snorkels with you. I don't know why it doesn't matter really. It's a little detail. I can totally buy that they have weird space snorkels to let them breathe underwater. I just don't know why they had them on them in the first place. This is really strange. But what was starting to get to me more, I guess, was things like a lot of the tension in the movie is terrible. Meaning there's really not any. It's like situations that should have some like excitement value should be tense, instead of just only there to be visually like, oh, look at this cool stuff, rather than, hey, experience this cool situation. Like the part when they're going underwater and there's like, oh, there are these big sea creatures, like a couple times, like started eating their ship and could totally kill them, and it's like, what? Like, why don't they care? Why is Jar Jar the only one that is appropriately reacting to the situation of they're going to fucking die? The other two are just like, whatever, we're Jedi, we don't have feelings about anything, we can't be afraid of this, because that's really exciting. I mean, you might argue, well, the Jedi Code, part of being a Jedi is you have to control your fear. It's like, sure, maybe. Is that exciting to watch? Probably not. So why put them in that situation where it's just uninteresting? To demonstrate that they're boring? And it's like, the comic relief is supposed to be exaggeratory about this. Like, 3PO in the originals was like, in the original trilogy, a lot of times would be like very quick to be like, oh, let's just avoid danger. This situation's way too dangerous. I'm freaked out. And most of the time, you know, like he was afraid of things that weren't even really that scary. You know, like other characters are like, whatever, you're overreacting. They just kind of ignore them. But then there were times when like there's actually stuff to worry about, and the characters react appropriately. Like, you know, they didn't like go inside of like, inside of like a big like space worm. You know, remember when that happened? They didn't do that, and then we're just like, oh, we'll be fine. And we'll just get out. And then have 3PO be the only one who was like, whoa, my god. You know, like, it doesn't make any sense to have your characters not care what's happening to them, because that makes the audience not care what's happening to them, and it makes your scene about the special effects rather than about, you know, anything exciting. It's just, look at the thing we could do that no one cares about. It's just a thing for you to look at. Also, there's a part in the middle there where the power goes out underwater, and it's like, oh, okay. That could be like a situation where like something could go wrong, and I understand like they're not going to panic about it because they want to think of how to fix it rather than panic. That made sense for Jar Jar to freak out, but then Obi-Wan just opens up a thing and connects a wire or something, and then, oh, now it works again. It just short-circuited or something, I guess. I don't know. Well, I don't know what's going on. How does Obi-Wan know what's going on or how to use that? He hasn't even heard of this kind of transport before. He was asking what it was, but he somehow knows that the box to do that thing is right there and knows how to do it. Whatever. Fine, whatever. And, just also the fact that during that scene, this whole scene made me really frustrated, I guess. That whole set of things that happened there. But, like, also the fact that it's, like, both times it was like, oh yeah, here's a fish, and here's, like, another fish. And, like, here's a sea creature, and he gets eaten by another sea creature, and that's how we got away. We did nothing to have that happen. It just happened. And I guess we're fine. That is stupid. That is so stupid. And so that frustrated the shit out of me. It rarely feels like Qui-Gon cares about anything, you know, oh yeah, sorry, I'll get to Qui-Gon, hold on. The other thing about the tension, another part of that is that a lot of the droids don't really do anything to the Jedi. They're never like, oh, let's be careful around all these droids. So it's just like, yeah, we'll just deflect every single thing they do and then kill them in one hit. Droideka's the only thing they ran away from. So, I don't know, it's totally a thing where it's just like, there's no tension there. There's the whole part where there's like a whole space battle later on, you know, in the sky trying to fight the whole trade ship thing. And there's a bunch of people and fighters we don't know, we don't care about. The only one we care about up there is up there by accident, and it's just doing things by accident. And then, like, Qui-Gon is just... I don't really care for him that much here. That was probably the biggest surprise to me, the biggest change in my thoughts, where I used to think he was like, yeah, I remember him being like a cool character in it. You know, Liam Neeson plays him well enough, but the character sucks. The character kind of sucks, because he's like, what, when they're going to do the pod racing thing, and he's like, yeah, as like, tells Anakin to like, just like feel with the Force, like let the Force guide you, some shit like that. And he also says don't think, which is absolutely terrible advice for anyone outside of the Ghostbusters in, you know, when confronted with Zool or whatever. Like it's I don't think that the Jedi teaching is to feel the Force and not think. I think you probably are still supposed to think about things when you're using the Force. And there's also a point like when they're like on Tatooine and they're like, oh yeah, we can't get parts, they won't take our money, we don't have anything to trade. And he's like, well, I'm sure something new, it's like a different solution will present itself. I think he may have mentioned the Force in that or not, I don't remember. And it was just like, okay, so we're just gonna putz around here for a while then, I guess, and hope something happens, rather than actually think about something to happen. We'll just wait for it to happen to us. And he just has this, and he's like, oh yeah, this boy is part of the prophecy that we have. You know, the whole virgin birth thing, stupid. That's just stupid in general. Don't do that. But it's building up as like, it's like space religion, and then it's like, well, that means Qui-Gon is like, also has like blind faith in this weird like space religion, and that is also really contradictory to the idea of like like when he has this little conversation about like, is this high concentration of midichlorians? He introduces that famous thing, midichlorians, where like, oh yeah, he tries to science it, and it's like, it's in bloodstream, it's a thing that's science now, so it's not just the space religion thing. But then why would you just have blind faith in the Force and also believe in the sciencey thing? Is it the reason? Wouldn't you think the reason is because he's destined to be that way, rather than he just has a bunch of midichlorians? I don't know. It's so contradictory and stupid, and his character is not very good. Just not very good character at all. And it just seems so weird, so weird. He's also against like the Council. He doesn't want to follow the rules of the Jedi Council in a way that's like kind of scary, because he just feel like, he's just like, oh, the Force guides me, I'll just like let the Force decide what I'm doing, so whatever he feels like doing, basically, rather than actually thinking about something, which is what the Council fucking does. And I don't know, a lot of the characters just not very good in this, though, you know, like that's a thing, where it's like Anakin, sure, he's annoying because he's a little kid. I don't think he should just automatically be really good at being a pilot. That doesn't seem like he should be really good at that already. He seems like he's way too young to be that good at a pilot. He'd either be dead by now or too young to know what he's doing with it. The idea is that, oh, he's gifted because he's part of the Force or whatever the fuck, and that whole weird Jesus allegory thing is dumb anyway, and I hate it, and I hate it, and I hate it, so I'm not gonna like anything that comes out of that, I guess, as using that as the excuse or the explanation of why that happens. Yeah, and then there's, like, I don't know, he's kind of, like, annoying, and he just kind of goes along with stuff, though, you know. He doesn't have a lot of personality. I think the biggest problem with him is just that he's annoying, because he's a little kid. Just not really his fault, I guess. He didn't cast himself. Jar Jar's annoying because he's a klutzy, stupid, comic relief character, but he's not nearly as bad as I remember. He's still really stupid, and they do some really stupid stuff with him, and I wouldn't miss him if he wasn't in the movie, but at the same time, I don't know. He's not the reason that movie is bad. If the rest of the movie around him was good and he was still there, you know, I'd still like the movie. So, there's Darth Maul, who is stupid. He's a fine set piece. He's a cool looking dude. He looks like he's scary. He's one thing that's an actual threat to the Jedi that they're even somewhat care about, and they're like, oh, he's really strong. I think he's a Sith. So he could be a threat, actually, rather than droids who apparently can't do anything to us ever. And so it's like, he works as a set piece. He doesn't work too well as a character. He has like 2 lines throughout the whole movie. You only see him a couple of times, and he's really just there so that the Jedi have something to fight, you know, at the end. That's an actual challenge for them. And then what's also like kind of bullshitty too, I think, is that, you know, on a fucking whim, you know, Qui-Gon just reveals everything to this fucking little kid, that they're on this mission that, you know, of course, you know, I'm sure that's something they would want him to do, the Republic would want him to do, or the Council, or anyone, you know, would want him to just reveal, you know, information to a fucking little kid who I'm sure would be really great at keeping that information. on the planet. He wouldn't tell anyone. I'm sure this little kid understands the gravity of keeping this information secret. Oh yeah, they also have the part where Qui-Gon does like the thing where he manipulates the dice roll or whatever, and he's been doing mind tricks on people whenever he wants, you know, for his own personal gain because he believes he's supposed to. But then when, you know, they're talking about like Amidala's trying to do all this stuff and try to help her city full of people, and he's like, we can't. It's like, we're not allowed to use our powers to help her. Why? You use them to help yourself, but not other people. Apparently, I don't. You gonna explain that or not? Not great. And like, yeah, but like Maul goes in, like he kills. The funny scene again, another thing they brought up in Fred's Letter Media review. Like they're in that weird room with all these things that are like opening and closing or whatever, force fieldy things, and like Obi-Wan's trying to catch up to help fight Darth Maul with Qui-Gon, who, for some reason, the first time they fought Maul, he had a one-sided lightsaber. The second time, he had a two-sided one. I don't know why that's the thing. Not that it matters, but I don't know why it happened. And he runs towards them. You think if, you know, you could do the Force run in the beginning of the movie, you could do that same thing at the end of the movie here and get through that entire hallway and just catch up to them, but he doesn't, because then they couldn't have the part where he watches Qui-Gon get killed. There's not a whole lot to feel there. Qui-Gon is, you know, like, he's supposed to be kind of like, you know, the master to Obi-Wan, but he hasn't really done a whole lot that's been like, oh gee, what a great guy, really cared. There's also no connection really between these two. They barely know what the fuck Darth Maul even is, and then they confront him and have a final confrontation already with him, so he's not like a big deal. He's just there for them to have a set piece to fight at the end. Why they went fighting in this weird other room like that, like those weird rooms they're fighting in, what are those rooms for? Well, did I miss a detail there that I really actually could have missed a detail there? Where it was like, why did all these other, like, you know, troops and stuff on Naboo want to go that way? They said they're going to take the long way. The long way to what? Like, what was in there they needed to get to? And then, there's a weird thing where, like, Qui-Gon kind of, like, as a dying wish, thrusts the kid onto Obi-Wan is his responsibility, like, yes, train him onto Obi-Wan, who is not even a fucking Jedi Knight yet, who hasn't done the goddamn trials or whatever. He's just gonna thrust that on him. Seems like a great idea. Which brings up an interesting point of why didn't we ever hear about Qui-Gon in the prequel, or the original trilogy? And obviously the reason is that the character probably didn't exist yet. But maybe he did, I don't know. I'm assuming he didn't. But you hear Obi-Wan talk about how basically makes it sound like Yoda trained him. Just like Yoda trained Luke. And he made it seem like after Yoda trained him, he tried to train Anakin. We never heard about Qui-Gon there, who was supposed to be, I think, pretty important to him as he trained him. But instead, that whole thing is just kind of lost. So I don't know why that is. That's just odd that they even bothered. Yoda's also a little weird here because he just seems angry throughout the whole movie, which you wouldn't really think of him as just being angry. He should just be, you know, more calm about things, or, you know, more even, I guess, than just he seems angry the whole time. And I don't know. I don't exactly understand what the Jedi Council has to do with anything too much at this point either, other than so they're Jedi in the movie. I don't know. Maybe they'll come more into play in the other ones where I'll be like, oh yeah, of course, this makes sense to set them up now, I guess. And I'll find out what really they're about and everything, but I don't know. Queen Amidala is bad, in the sense that she's supposed to be like this leader who's all like compassionate. She cares about like her people and wants to save them, and that's why she's doing all this stuff. She's like, you know, the Senate's not gonna help me, so fuck the Senate. I'm gonna have to try and save my people myself. And you hear that, and you hear the way I say it, and you're like, "Whoa, that sounds kind of neat. I bet that's a cool performance." But it's more like, if the Senate can't do this, then I will do it myself. Like, it's so, she delivers everything so fucking flat that I don't care. I don't believe you care, so I don't care. Where are all these people you're protecting? Also, did I miss the part where your town ever had a bunch of people walking around and shit? Whatever. And, the whole Senate meeting thing is so boring, and this whole movie does not feel like a big adventure. It doesn't feel, it's like, the pod racing, you know, a lot of that was, like, not of much consequence, I didn't feel like. It was just kind of a fun thing to watch. At least it was a fun thing to watch, you know. So much of you actually felt a little tension there. And you're like, oh man, this is crazy. Whereas, like, I don't know, like, the idea is it's supposed to be this big fun space adventure. That's kind of Star Wars, and it seems like this is so tied to the idea of here's a prophecy. Things have to happen because they have to happen. And we're also burdened with things have to line up with what does happen in the future, so certain things have to happen between now and then to make then make sense. It's really rough, and I think it is hard. They also have a lot of awkward, like, call forwards, I guess, chronologically, or callbacks to the movies that were released before but came after. I have a bad feeling about this, and not entirely stable, and just so many weird little lines tossed in here and there. They shoehorned in 3PO and R2, and they don't really need to be there. They don't have a very big role there, and it just feels kind of like they had an idea. I don't know. It feels like it's a lot of, like, we have to set this stuff up, so we'll just do all this here. And it doesn't feel like there was a whole lot done. Like, basically, like, yeah, they kill Maul, don't care, there's not much connection there. He showed up just a few times, then they killed him, oh well. Then there was the whole thing with the ship and beating all the droid armies and shit, and then they did that. And that was the big thing, we're like, oh cool, that was the big conclusion that they did, and that also was kind of like, but it's hard to give a shit because I didn't really give a shit in the first place, because nobody really presented it as if I should give that much of a shit, you know. Nobody made me feel like I should. I still cared more. There was a bit more to it there, but it was still kind of like, eh. And yeah, essentially at this point, yeah, pretty much Obi-Wan is maybe the best character in it, and he has a very small role. Really, he doesn't do a lot. He listens a lot, I guess. And I will say that the line that Qui-Gon says, says that Obi-Wan is a wiser man than he is, very, very true, because he thinks about things with his head. Doesn't just say, I'll just see what happens, the Force will make it happen for me, because he's a reasonable human being. But I don't know. I think that's pretty much everything I had to say about it. It had some neat special effects in it, you know, and it's probably about, I feel about the same about it. I don't have an unnatural hate for it. I feel like I picked up on a lot more this time. Things got set up, I guess it needed to get set up, but a lot of it is just like, it doesn't feel like a fun adventure. It feels like, you know, like tedious. Like, we have to do certain things to set up a conflict, to set up a story, to set up all the groundwork for more things, and the ending of it didn't feel, it could have been a good ending for it too, but it didn't feel like it was, because they didn't do enough interactions between the, you know, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul to make that mean something in the fight. Choreography be damned, that fight didn't really have much to it. And like the whole, like, dealing with the droid army and the trade dispute thing on Naboo, again, it's like they could have built it up a lot better with better performances, and they could have made you care, but they didn't. You made it as just sterile and, like, so much of it's just business, you know. Like, this is just business. We just have to do these things so that these things can have happened so we can do more things later on. And that's sad because, yeah, it was going through the motions. It was procedure. It wasn't really an adventure, an experience. It wasn't exciting. And, I don't know, I guess it probably spawned some better games than it did, of a movie. So there's at least that to be thankful for, I suppose. But we'll see. Maybe they'll pick it up, and maybe the next two movies will be really good, because I do generally hear that this is the worst of them, and like if the other ones are good, maybe that'll kind of save it because you needed the setup. I'm hoping they're good. I just don't have a whole lot of reason to believe they will be, I guess. I don't know. This was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's about the same as I remember, and the other ones could go either way. They could be better than I remember or worse, so we'll see what happens. Man, we'll see what happens. Oh, and also, yeah, I guess the whole thing of bad for a Star Wars movie, and for, just a regular movie. I mean, I've seen some pretty bad movies, so I've seen worse. But, I don't know. It was more boring than I thought it would be, especially with all the potential there was for it to be exciting. So, yeah, if this was like a cheap, nobody movie, it would actually be pretty cool, I guess. But it's a Star Wars movie. What are you gonna do? So, just seen Attack of the Clones. And I don't know. Do I just have crazy bags under my eyes, or is that the lighting? You guys decide. I can't see with them off. Okay, so Attack of the Clones. I'm going to start off by saying this was better, in the sense that it was more of a movie. There were some things that were kind of cool. There were less things that were super confusing and baffling, and there was a lot of, I don't know, it just felt overall like a more competent story happening. There were a few more characters to give a shit about, I guess. Positives here are like things like, I mean, you still got Obi-Wan, who is more prominent in this one, and you've got, he seems like a decent voice of reason. And then we've got like, I guess Yoda's alright. Mace Windu is non-offensive, kind of just a echoing chamber for Yoda, I guess, but he's there. And props to Count Dooku for not just being a set piece like Darth Maul. He actually is a character. No, not great, but he is a character. He is, so he both has, his own goals and ambitions and stuff as a character, as well as being a threat for the Jedi. Because we know droids aren't. I don't know, the setup was done pretty well, and I think that it was nice that, there was still some stuff kind of happening, trying to go around and find out stuff like, oh, there's an assassin happening, and then, like, you follow the assassin thing to this cloning facility, and from the cloning facility you find out about this droid facility, and just all this stuff kind of unfolds. So in that sense, it did feel a bit more like they were doing stuff, It was like they were going out and doing things rather than just, like, putzing around places in multiple different places. But it was also a bit of a, I don't know, it's still a little cold, and like, again, most of the characters, it's hard to care about them, you know, like Jar Jar is in the movie, and another positive about him is that while he's in the movie minimally, he also doesn't say a whole lot, so he's not really annoying in this one. He's not good, but he's not bad. And like, it does feel a lot of like, okay, well, a lot of this is all serious, and let's all have a board meeting about what to do next, and our characters are very unlikable, very either just bland or awkward, and they don't really know how to act like human beings, where like Anakin is a weirdo, and he's clearly got, you know, mental problems. Obi-Wan isn't the best. He is very smart, knows how to handle himself, but he's not a very good Jedi Master, I guess. He is not very supportive, doesn't really build up Anakin very well. Seems like it's oftentimes, you know, he barely gives him praise, and when he does, it's oftentimes backhanded and sarcastic. And I think that's part of why Anakin's a little fucked up. Though, to be fair, Obi-Wan did just kind of have this thrust on him as Qui-Gon's dying wish, so I guess it sort of can make sense to be that way. You still feel kind of bad for him because it's shit that, like, Anakin should understand, but doesn't. And at the same time, you're like, you see kind of how Yoda is way different and like very patient and stuff with the kids a little bit, anyways, in the academy thing or whatever. So it's like, I don't know. And then of course, like Anakin, you know, he's so awkward and so whiny and shit, and you know, I mean, I guess probably training to be a Jedi for how many years probably doesn't help you with your social skills, but which was the thing I forgot to bring up about the previous movie, but I'll bring it up now quick. Yoda even says that at that in Phantom Menace, they try to say that Anakin is too old to start the training. How fucking young do they gotta be? They just gotta, you know, come right from the hospital and send him into the academy. How young do they gotta be? He seemed really young to me, but like Luke at least understood, because he seemed like old enough for us, like, yeah, it'd be harder to mold him because he's not a child, but Anakin totally was. Anyways, that's for that period, so I don't want to dwell on it too much. But you think, like, I don't know, I guess the thing is, like, he thinks he's ready for the trials and stuff, and he's not. He tries to kind of blame Obi-Wan for that, but he also just doesn't seem to get it, and instead of understanding it, he just wants to do the things he wants to do, I guess. He doesn't really know how to control himself, and he's kind of a piece of shit. And why the council thought he was ready to go off and do his own mission is beyond me. Doesn't seem like that's something they should do, but oh well. And also the weird, like, romance story going on doesn't really make sense. It seems like their interactions range from painfully awkward to rather aggressive towards each other's ideals. And why would they then fall in love and get married when they don't seem to have any chemistry? I don't know, because they're supposed to. Maybe that's part of the reason why things go wrong. We'll see as those develop in the next movie, I guess. Or if that's just an accident, you know, because of the performances and the writing and whatever. I don't know. And there's a thing too where, like, there's these big battles that happen in this movie, and they seem weird with this lack of caring. Again, a lack of giving a shit about your characters. So, like, there are these big battles that happen, and it's like, after they get captured and stuff, and they're about to be executed on Geonosis, and then they're doing stuff there, and it's like, you somewhat don't care, I guess, as far as plot goes for the movie, that they're in this trouble, I guess. But then there's like, all the Jedi come in to try and save them, and then it's a bunch of Jedi fighting a whole bunch of droids, and you're like, you only care about, like, 4 people in this sea of, all of that. And then a bunch of the clones come in and start fighting and stuff to save them. And then it's a bunch of clones, which we don't care about. They can just make more of them. They don't matter. Fighting a bunch of droids that we don't care about. They can just make more of them. They don't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And, so it's just, neat looking action scenes. This really was the point of doing that. Which, again, these things would be fun, in video games. But if you're doing these and we don't care about the people involved in the stuff, it's just really boring. There's also the fight after that with Dooku, where you at least kind of care about, like, Obi-Wan and Anakin doing that stuff. Seems to have some purpose behind it. Then Yoda comes in and challenges Dooku. Weird that they had to fight with their lightsabers, but they did. It's kind of awkward and kind of stupid, but it happens. And you're like, fine, whatever. Didn't need to see Yoda do that, but could just have him do all the Force stuff, would have been fine. But whatever. Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of that, I guess. It's just like, you have to care about characters, and most of them you don't. Because they're, or at least I didn't anyways, because, yeah, they're not super realistic or charismatic or anything, and because a lot of the stuff isn't that realistic, I don't know. That's why, like, the whole thing with Anakin and trying to build the stuff up to, it's based on some weird prophecy thing. It's just stupid, and it's hard to care about it in general. Whereas, at least, kind of cared about, like, some of the stuff, like, we gotta go, like, keep the senator safe or whatever. And we didn't see a whole lot of Sidious / Palpatine in this either. He was there a bit, but not a whole lot. And so I feel like it was mainly about, yeah, like, we now have, like, the clones now are establishing that. We're now, like, we see that there's, like, other stuff, and, like, we have found this facility where they're making droids and stuff, and it's kind of like Empire Strikes Back, in the sense that all this previous stuff was, it was kind of like the framework built up to it, right? And now we're kind of exploring the characters a bit more, and then going to, well, kind of looking more at the characters, I guess, yeah, and going into, like, a lot of these details and uncovering stuff that is, like, going to pay off and be more important in the next film, without a real satisfying conclusion to it. Except that it isn't as fun, and the characters aren't as good as in Empire Strikes Back, which is why it doesn't really work so well, is because you can't really go into characters and expect the audience to care, about what you're doing if you don't care about the characters. It doesn't make for a very interesting movie. So I felt like more things at least mattered in this movie, but I also, think it still needed a lot of work to make it more fun and to make it work for what it is. Also the weird thing that, friends, like Obi-Wan and Anakin were supposedly friends, according to the original series. Yet we didn't see that. We didn't really see him, like, Anakin training between, like, he was a little kid, and now he's, supposedly has already trained or is training with Obi-Wan, but rarely do they ever do any kind of training stuff. Or even with Luke, we saw a little bit of his training, at least to kind of get an idea of what he was doing. We don't really see any of that with Anakin, so what has Obi-Wan even been teaching him? We have no clue. Do they have moments where they really bonded? They mentioned that one thing in the one scene, and they had a laugh about it. Otherwise, they seem to be very at odds with each other all the time. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like that was really well explored or well done, and that's a strange missed opportunity, considering that was supposed to be a big part of it, that he was a good friend. It's like, at what point? At what point? So yeah, I don't know. Some of the details seem off. I got things kind of wrong, but it was less confusing, and it seemed like more of a movie, even if it was tried to be a little too serious, and tried to focus too much on characters that we don't care about because they're not very good characters. I do like the line, though, to kind of contradict Qui-Gon's line when he told, because Qui-Gon told Anakin during the pod race in episode 1, it was like, or like before the pod race, and he's like, something like, it's like, let the Force guide you, don't think. Which, like, don't think was the part where I thought was ridiculously stupid for advice. And then Obi-Wan has the part where he tells Anakin, he's like, be patient. He's like, let the Force guide you and think. He specifically says to think. That's like, this is why Obi-Wan is an entirely better character than Qui-Gon. It's because he has a brain and will use it. So I don't know. That was my takeaway. Is that they made Obi-Wan seem a little better. They made Count Dooku be decent. They also weirdly shoehorned in, like, 3PO and R2-D2 don't need to be in there. They could have easily just been written out of that, but they're like, well, we want them in there because they're mascots of the series, partially, so let's do that, I guess, and that's upsetting. But I think that's everything. I didn't have as much to say about this one. I'm just hoping that this does build up into a thing that could pay off, and, with all the stuff that happens, I guess you maybe could have, the other point I was going to make, I keep forgetting I had some. The other one little point is that they maybe could have just not done the Phantom Menace, and maybe had a movie that was after that, but before this, or something maybe like that, where they're training, the whole training thing of, like, Anakin growing up or something. And if they just somehow explained a little better what happened in that movie, supposedly, then it would seem less stupid. Or like, oh, the weird, like, virgin birth thing and the pod race thing, whatever. Just, like, sum that up better, put it into the opening crawl of this one, boom, like, you're ready to just go with this one. I don't know. But yeah, it's better. I would say I enjoyed it more anyways. Less baffling and frustrating. But not as boring. But at the same time, it's still awkward and strange, and I'm hoping it all gets tied together real well in Revenge of the Sith, and that's I'm hoping this whole thing doesn't turn into a bust. Really am. Hey, so this is a weird way of doing it. Slightly different angle, maybe. I don't know. Well, let's hope this works out well, I guess. So, Revenge of the Sith. I watched it. I'm now done watching through the movies. And Revenge of the Sith, is basically, it's a strange thing of, it, how do I put it, well, Revenge of the Sith, basically, I guess, is like tying together all the stuff, and it's like basically everything that the previous movies were building towards, except that the issue with that is more that sorry, I'm kind of tired. The issue with that is, well, for one thing, it sort of builds up to the bad guys win. You know, the good guys try to win, but they don't. They fail, and it's like, well, that sucks. But you kind of knew the bad guys had to win because of the other movies, and also, it's not really a satisfying, even like the bad guys win kind of ending. In the sense that, like, it doesn't feel like it's meaningful that the bad guys won, you know? It feels kind of like that just sucks, and like, it doesn't feel like anyone necessarily, it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it concluded very well. And that's also, like, because it leads to the other problem where it's because it's all set up for, you know, setting the stage of the original trilogy. And so, when it has to sort of, even though it doesn't butt up right against it or anything, it has to end, in a way that finishes the events of these movies and is, set up to basically be the stage for the next ones. It's just an unhappy middle ground. I don't know. It's very unsatisfying and, I don't know, kind of sad, I guess. And, I don't know, there are some issues, I guess. Once again, a lot of it stems from Anakin in here being a whiny piece of shit, and he doesn't seem to understand shit he should understand by now. He's supposedly, like, a Jedi Knight now. Apparently they've done more training and gone on some other adventures and stuff between now and the previous movie. I guess. We get an offhanded comment about that. I guess they're friends, I guess. Him and Obi-Wan, apparently, again, offhanded comment. We'll have to take their word for it. And I don't know. This just seems weird that he's still fucking shit up, that he's still, like, really impatient and doesn't understand things that he should understand if he's able to be a Jedi Knight. It doesn't make sense to me, I guess. It doesn't really make that much sense that he would be that get that title without understanding the basics and the stuff he's supposed to understand for being one of them. So I don't know, that's still strange to me. And there's still there's more of Palpatine in this movie, which is good. One of the few characters I thought was actually good, but then Palpatine is, I don't know, they don't use him enough, I think, in the other movies and stuff, and then when we see him in here, maybe they could have used him more, maybe not, I don't know. I guess he's okay, I guess. I don't know. The thing is, I guess, like, well, I don't know, some of the other stuff, like, a lot of it's in the details of this, I guess, too. Just kind of all over the place and exhausted after seeing these. One of the things is, like, it starts off and it's like, oh, cool, like, they're fighting, like, Count Dooku again, that's neat. They apparently hadn't seen him for a long time, and it's like, okay, let's have another fight with him, a rematch. And, this character that they've kind of built up, and it's like, oh, cool, he's gonna be, like, the main villain dude they're gonna have to deal with, there's someone they're gonna have to take down during the movie. In the first, opening of the movie, first part of it, they already take him down. Okay. Let's kill off that character that had potential then also, I guess. And they introduced General Grievous. He sucks. He's just a kind of a cowardly droid dude who, like, apparently is in charge of the droid army now, I guess. And I don't know. They fight him a couple times and then kill him. It's whatever. He just doesn't really matter. And I don't know. I think Obi-Wan, I think, is still done well. I still liked him. And I think, like, I don't know, like, there was the cool thing where, like, the clones, they had ordered the clones to turn on the Jedi. I thought that was, like, that's kind of neat, I suppose. That was part of the plan to do that from the beginning. And it was, at least an interesting thing that had a little bit of weight to it, I guess, and the idea that, you know, you didn't really see it coming, and some of the people just got murdered with it, and, like, some crazy shit went down, at least. And it felt a little more, like, not necessarily that he cared about all the people that died, but they'd been established around, like, and they, you know, killed off the kids, and then killed off the, like, all the Jedi that had been around and trying to fight for stuff, so, like, at least it wasn't, like, nobodies this time, or people that didn't matter, like droids and clones dying, you know, so, like, that was an interesting, a good change. I don't know, trying to think of all the things. I think for a lot of it, I guess I let it slide just because it was like, I've already sunk this far in, and it's like, by this point, you don't expect as much, you're kind of numb to it, and you're just kind of like, well, this is how it's gonna go. But there's still weird stuff they jump to, like, Anakin jumps to these fucking weird-ass conclusions. He only turns to the dark side to try and save Padme. He then has all these, jumps to all these conclusions and stuff, and he's doing stuff, he's like, for some reason, blames Obi-Wan for shit when he's clearly the problem. He had the whole thing on, like, Mustafar and the ending there, where it's like, he ends up, like, accusing the shit out of, like, Padme, being like, no, you're lying to me, which is, like, weird that he would turn against her, of all people, and then a thing of, like, turns on Obi-Wan, and, like, wants to fight him, and Obi-Wan is telling him stuff, and he's like, you know, Obi-Wan, his master, and apparently a really good friend, is telling him all this stuff, and that's all very convincing stuff, too, with lots of reason to it, and it's just like, no, you're lying, like a fucking idiot. And then, yet at the very end of it, once he becomes full-on, like, Darth Vader suit Vader, and he wakes up from that, and it's like, where's Padme? And it's like, Sidious just tells him, like, oh, it's like, in your anger, you killed her. And what's weird is that is like, he even says the line right before the no, he's like, well, last I saw her, she was alive. He doesn't remember killing her. So why in the holy fuck would he believe that he killed her and not remember it? Why would he not go out and start finding her? He could just break out of there, he has all this power, he's unpredictable, and he's got this rage, and the only thing he wants to do is protect her, and he's trying to go find her. Why would he just believe Darth Sidious? Why would he just take his word for it if he wasn't even gonna believe shit about, you know, like, Obi-Wan warning him about shit? I don't know, it's ridiculous. There's also been the idea of why didn't they bring up the thing of, like, maybe doing, like, a love triangle? Would have been interesting, at least. But I don't know that necessarily that needed to be done, but I've heard that as an idea, like, it probably would have been interesting to see. It would have made more sense that they would have had to fight. Or at least have something that would make him think that, rather than just having him, I think she brought Obi-Wan here to basically Obi-Wan trying to turn her against him and bring Obi-Wan here to kill him. it's the whole fight thing, at least a little bit going on, I guess, and you know, like, the idea of the fight was at least interesting. The fight itself was like a lot of fanciful stuff. Also, there's the part in the fight. The one part was kind of goofy, where it's like they're swinging their lightsabers all around like nuts or whatever, and there's a point where, like, for a few seconds they're just swinging around sideways and stuff, and, like, not hitting each other at all. They're just flipping them around. It's so dumb. It just shows how, like, silly that is. Like, they're not fighting a bunch of people. They're not, like, fighting a group where they have to be slicing behind them and stuff too and protecting themselves. The only target is the other person right there. I don't know. And then there's the whole thing where, like, she goes back and gives birth to the kids, and then the doctor's like, we're losing her, we don't understand why. And apparently, I missed the line, people said that it was in there, it's like, oh, it said, like, she died of, like, a broken heart or some shit like that. Which, I mean, let's be fair and say that's stupid, but still stay as fair as possible and say, well, if we're accepting a whole idea of a virgin fucking birth happening in the first place, okay, whatever, fine. It's also a place with, you know, the Force and, you know, space magic, religious space magic stuff going on, so, like, I get why you might want to let stuff go, but it has to at least be part of the rules and make sense with these rules. And I don't know, I guess, I don't know, you have a little bit with Yoda in there, and there's the Yoda Palpatine fight. Stupid. Idea's okay, but again, kind of stupid to see it happen. It's kind of like, eh. And then it's like at the end of it, it's also a thing of like, oh, we failed, you know, like, and then they're just, what's weird is that, like, they fail, and they're like, instead of trying to gather what's left of everyone and come back, you know, like, and do something else, try to keep planning stuff, they're like, no, we failed. And we failed, so now we're just gonna go into hiding, for whatever, for, you know, 20 years, 17 years, however old they're supposed to be. We're gonna go hide for that many years, and then we'll come back out again later, I guess. Rather than planning anything in the meantime to keep trying to go forward. So, I don't know. That's silly. But whatever. It's just, very unsatisfying, and while it feels like the most stuff happened that was, like, actually kind of gave a shit about, with characters that are okay for some of them, like Obi-Wan and Palpatine did well. Like, yeah, everyone else I don't give a shit about. And, let's just start talking about the thing as a whole now, which is why I'm gonna prop this up a little bit. Basically, the problem with the trilogy of the prequels, there's a lot of problems. I think they suffered greatly from the, I don't know how to do this comfortably, from the burdens of having to do a bunch of call forwards, of having to try and show events that have already happened, and it was a tall order, you know, but they did a poor job of getting characters we cared about, and they went about things in such a bizarre way. Their stories were very scattered, and it felt like a lot of things happening that don't necessarily have to connect to one another. I don't know. I think that, like, it had potential to be something really cool, and they've got some cool set pieces, they've got some cool battles, some cool stuff happening, but a lot of it, they just dropped the ball with it. We should have seen more stuff, like, we should have seen a bond actually form between Obi-Wan and Anakin. We We should have seen them going on, like, we should have seen the training. We should have seen their adventures with each other. We should have seen them bond and become friends so that we understand it rather than just being told that. I think that was a big one for me. I think that really should have been more of the focus rather than all of the stupid space politics crap or the, the putting so much focus on the love story that's so awkward and poorly executed and doesn't make sense when it's done. And I think, like, the biggest part of it too, I think, what would have made it a lot better, I mean, you're already, like, destroying a lot of the mystery and the magic of starting, the original trilogy where it started. Darth Vader is really cool because, he's got a past, I suppose, but he's cool because he's, like, this evil dude that's, like, very menacing and scary. He's a scary villain, and while he has a bit to him, that's going on, explaining his character doesn't make him better to see all that happen. We don't need to see how Darth Vader became Darth Vader, how the Emperor became the Emperor. We don't need to really see that because they already are those things. It doesn't really matter. What matters is how they deal with them and how they stop them. And these movies take it very seriously to be like, let's go do that. So I don't know, like, and but I guess it's a little bit more of talking about the whole series. I guess I should save that for that last section that I'm going to do. But I guess the biggest, by far the biggest thing I think they should have done is, for, like, at the very least, is make Anakin a tragic character. Which I feel like they wanted to do it, but they didn't really do it very well. It feels like it's kind of set up to be like, let's turn him into, like, oh, he had all this potential, he could have been something, like, truly amazing, and he just got corrupted, and he fell to the dark side, and that's, what happened, right? And the problem with this is that they make him be this impulsive, kind of stupid asshole who's really selfish and clearly doesn't understand how to be a Jedi, who doesn't really deserve the rank he's gotten, and I don't understand why the people around him like him. I don't understand why why I should like him, why the audience should like him, and therefore that makes him not a tragic character. Because if you don't care about him, then you don't feel bad that tragedy befalls him. You feel like he kind of brought it upon himself, and you feel like he deserved it. He should have been promising. He should have been very competent. He should have been learning, but still needed to learn some other things. Or he should have just, maybe in the second movie he should have, kind of learned how to do stuff a bit more. Or showing the training process would help with this too. But you should show him, like, learning this stuff. Maybe certain concepts, or, like, maybe just one concept or something is difficult for him to deal with. Or just the idea that he's going to lose Padme, like, that emotion thing, like, is what steers him off the path. And, you can make that the thing, and that makes him veer off and want to, explore the dark side, which they kind of do. But it wasn't just that thing. Like, it wasn't like he was a really great Jedi and all that, except for that. And they just sensed something inside him. It was more like, no, he's very outwardly, very obviously not a good Jedi. And, like, he's a problem. So, I don't know. I feel like that was handled really poorly as well. Also, the performances, I don't know if that was what they wanted or not for a performance, but, like, man, is he grating. He does not get any better when he gets older. And unfortunately, that means, like, really, it feels more like a story about Obi-Wan than anything. Where, like, trained to be a Jedi Knight by by a kind of shitty master, you know, who puts way too much faith in the Force and doesn't think about anything, yet somehow Obi-Wan ends up being actually smart and using his brain, almost in spite of Qui-Gon, it seems, and then gets stuck with Qui-Gon's responsibility because he had a dying wish, and he wants to respect that, and tries to be a good master, but kind of fails at it, because he doesn't really know how to do it. He hadn't even taken his trials yet. He didn't really know how to do that, yet he does at that wish, and he does his best, even though he's not the best at it. You know, he tries, and ends up failing miserably, and, you know, that Darth Vader, he's really just a living embodiment of Obi-Wan's failure. And it almost makes Obi-Wan the one you feel the worst for and like care the most about, because he's the most grounded character that you have. It's sad. And that's pretty much everything I can say, I think, about just in general with all these, like with that. Like, I don't know. They're definitely good stuff for making, you know, spin-off things, you know, video games and extended universe stuff and whatever. It's good for the mythos, the lore, and all that, but I can't honestly say it's all that great as a standalone, like, thing. So, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. But we'll get to that at the end. I got one more section. I'm probably going to sleep on this a bit. And then record the final thoughts on all of this as a whole, and hopefully this whole video hasn't been too terrible. So I'll think on that a little more, and I'll see you in the next part. Alright, so I couldn't get this shot to be less awkward. So I wanted the camera closer, I wanted these things to be in the shot somewhat, and well, here they are. So this is the wrap up. You know, I'm not going to be real well in the frame. I don't even care at this point. I've now watched the original series through first, or original trilogy first, and then I watched the prequel trilogy after that. Like I mentioned in the beginning, and there's a lot of things you can compare between these two, I suppose. And in a comparison idea, I guess, there's a reason why the prequels are not that good. And I think it's largely because of how they're taken. You know? Maybe that's the tone, maybe that's just a direction, I don't know exactly. I'm not really a film critic. But even I can see that there's issues. And I'm thinking that basically, I feel like the big thing is just like how they treat stuff in there is like, they treat everything as though everything has to happen. You know, it's a lot of trying to basically show us how everything fell into place to get to the original trilogy, to what we already know and was already established. Whereas the original trilogy was so free in that it could do whatever it wanted, and it didn't feel like it was set in stone. You know, these things had to happen. You could probably assume things were going to happen, like the good guys were going to win and the bad guys were going to lose. It's not like it's that crazy of an idea. But it's weird because, you know, like this is paying tribute to a lot of you know, old space serials and stuff, whereas the prequels are trying to almost pay tribute to the original trilogy itself, and failing horribly in the mess, where you know, in the process, where it's like, I don't know, I think for me, like, a thing that's really annoying is just the sense that, like, they seem to be very focused on this idea that, like, all the Jedi stuff is super important, like this prophecy, essentially, this whole idea of Anakin becoming the super powerful Jedi, And in the beginning, there's prophecy that he'll bring balance to the Force, and then after that, they think that he's actually going to be a huge problem and bring destruction to the Force. Regardless of how they're looking at that, they're treating it so seriously, this weird, like, prophecy thing, which is, it doesn't really work as well, I think, because, you know, it's not fun. It took so much of the story's focus to do that, and whereas, like, the Jedi stuff here and the Force and all that, it's a factor in the originals, but, like, you never feel like things have to happen because they think it will. Like, this vision, seeing the future thing, like, that's going to happen. Like, it's not outright believed, like, yes, that's necessarily going to happen, or they know what's going to happen. It feels very vague, and it's like kind of like an intuition thing, and it's not taken as the be-all, end-all. You know, the Jedi are not a super important thing. They're largely extinct at this point. And I think that's good that it's lower in the mix. Whereas, like, yeah, in, like, the prequels, it's like the Jedi are, you know, the whole council and everything, they're in order, and people are, you know, talking to them and everything, and it's just, I don't know, it seems like they took that way too seriously, and because of everything that has to happen with that, they take it really seriously, and don't really delve into anything too fun or interesting. They just kind of try to get the story out there, hit those story points, and then have interesting sets and big fight scenes between there. Whereas it feels like there's more actual things happening, even if a lot of the stuff that happens is smaller scale in the original trilogy than that. But the big thing, I think, is that it's a weird context that it almost tries to make Darth Vader, you know, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, the main focus of all of this. Because he's throughout all of it. I mean, I know some other characters are as well, but the idea is just, mainly because of the huge focus in the prequels, is that it decided that, like, we need to explain how Darth Vader became Darth Vader and why we're in this mess. Focusing much too heavily on Darth Vader himself, and not as much the whole mess that happened. Not that we ever needed to know about that in the first place. Like, I mean, I did watch I rewatched the Red Letter Media, you know, Plinkett reviews. So if you haven't seen those, check those out. And he caught a lot more stuff than even I caught watching them, because he's an actual film critic and not stupid like I am. But even I caught enough stuff, I guess, which is probably a bad sign. But he brought up a lot of stuff that I also kind of felt as well, where there's that thought of, like, did we really need to know why everything happened? You know, like, do we really need to see all these things that happened in the opening crawl of, you know, A New Hope? Was that necessary? And probably not. Probably wasn't. Probably could have just gone without it entirely and been like, okay, well, that's what happened, I get it. Just like, even like episode 1, it's like that could have all just been like an opening crawl of text and never been, you know, I didn't need to see it, but they needed 3 movies. And the idea that, like, basically they tried to set up Anakin as a tragic character, but it doesn't work. It's supposed to be about him, like, you know, being a really promising Jedi, right? So we should have actually understood the ways of the Jedi instead of butting heads with their ideals on everything and being really stupid and impatient the entire time. And I don't know how he became a Jedi Knight with his attitude. I don't know how he became anything and got any responsibilities with the way he is. The real thing of that is the idea that, like, you know, all this is happening. It's like you're supposed to kind of feel like he was really promising, and then, yeah, like, he maybe should have had only, like, one thing that, like, he just butted heads on. Maybe the idea of, like, Jedi aren't allowed to love. Maybe he didn't agree with that, and so that was what kind of led him down this way. And he still could have been a decent, you know, an actual likable person. And then when he gets seduced by the dark side, rather than just tricked into it by something stupid and silly that he shouldn't believe anyways, he would have actually been turned because he needed the whole thing, like he wanted to save Padme. It could have still worked, right? And then he needed to do that so he was able to use those powers. It would have been fine. He didn't have to turn into a total stupid dick to do that. He could have just been like kind of like a betrayer, like doing what he has to do. And they could have made him actually tragic, like a tragic character, like they wanted him to be. So basically, because you have to care about him. Because if you don't care, he's not really that tragic. Because who cares? He was an asshole. Saw it coming. He deserved it. You know. And then it would have made the redemption of him a lot better in these ones. And it would have, again, not been necessary, but at least would have made sense. The other thing is, like, I don't know, the idea of, like, the friendship thing should have been there, too. Like, we didn't really see, we feel like we missed two important parts. We missed the part of training, which would have been interesting, and we missed the part of, like, we see, like, what he was learning, what Jedi are trying to know, or whatever, like, how that training goes, but it would be interesting, but just how Obi-Wan trained him, and how, kind of show how Obi-Wan failed in training Anakin, to show that maybe it was more of his responsibility, but also shows, like, some of their adventures together, and showing, like, how they became friends. So, for one thing, it would, because, you know, we were kind of just told that he failed at training him, and that they were good friends. And those are the things I think that would be actually entertaining and interesting to see, and that would have made you care about him more. And they didn't do that. And the thing is, yeah, I guess ultimately it cared much more about, say, the story, and setting up all the plot points to tie the ends together, more so than it did actually, you know, fleshing out these characters that they wanted to flesh out. I guess, yeah, it didn't really, it was a story that ends up not really needing to be told in this way, because a lot of the stuff is easily just explained by text. That's just fine to show that way, and, you know, because why do we care about their fucking political system? Who gives a shit? That's not really all that fun and engaging. And, like, I don't know, like, you need certain things for, like, a Star Wars movie, I guess. I don't know, it's hard to say this, and, like, it's just hard to look at it as, like, a huge continuous scope or whatever. It's strange, I guess. I just kind of, I don't know. There's not a whole lot I can really say on this that I haven't at this point, I guess. Because I feel like I harp too much on, like, the prequels of it. And, like, you know, there's stuff in, like, the original ones that, like, aren't great either. Or, like, stuff that's, like, kind of like, that's weird, but a lot of that's in the details that don't matter as much, because you give a shit about the characters, because there are characters that, you know, and, like, I don't know, it's just, feels like they just kind of went about stuff really the wrong way in the prequels, and while they didn't have to make them in the first place, and then, like, I don't know, the other thing I guess that bothered me within the grand scope, that's another thing I almost forgot, it's just this idea, too, that's, like, you know, you have the prequels and all this stuff happens, and then it's what's weird at the end of the prequels, everything seems to be, oh, it's already good and tidy and it's set up for everything that's going to kind of happen here. What happened in this space here? I think they have, like, some other, you know, EU stuff that's supposed to kind of talk about this space right here between them. But, I don't know. It's just odd to me because, like, did everything just kind of stay the same then between here and here? Basically, there's just, like, you know, however many years between these two, and everything from one point to the next is just fine. Like, it's just, like, all it's kind of maintained about what it was. Obviously, Rebel Alliance forms. That's about the only thing we don't see really show up in episode 3. So, like, apparently Yoda and Obi-Wan and the Emperor and Vader and all of them, like, nothing really happens between there. Between these movies, everything is just kind of like, yeah, we'll just let stuff sit for a while, and we'll just wait for these kids to grow up, and we'll hope they can do something, because we failed. And like, yeah, like they're, like Vader and the Emperor are like, well, we're in charge now, so let's just keep being in charge. I guess it took them that long to build the Death Star the first time, but then when they went to build the second Death Star, like, it took them way less time to do, seems. So I don't know why that is, unless they just had it down by then. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. It seems like kind of a silly idea that they decided to make another Death Star in the first place, though, doesn't it? Like, you'd think that if they made the Death Star, like, and the enemies know how to blow it up really easy, you think you'd just not make a Death Star again because it doesn't work. And but what do I know? I don't know. It's silly. And yeah, I don't know. Basically, the takeaway is that there really didn't need to be prequels, and if there were going to be these prequels, they maybe should have been done differently, and they could have worked real well with a different kind of focus. I guess, I don't know if they're stopping at a trilogy or just doing a bunch more what for Star Wars on from this point, but we'll see what happens, I suppose, in the future. I don't know. It's odd, and I still, look, I guess after watching all this stuff, is basically, like, I wanted to go in as open as possible and see what I thought, but obviously there were basically two things that I was wondering more so. It was just like, is the original trilogy as good as I remember, and are the prequels as bad as I remember? And, like, the originals I still think are great. I don't know that I have much more appreciation for them at this point, but they're still very, they're still solid movies. They're still really fun, and I can still watch them. I guess I'm slightly more critical of Empire now, but whatever. That's just me. It's not like I'm saying it's bad. The prequels I don't hate as much, surprisingly, because I mainly hated a lot of it just because it was different. Because I was a kid when I saw them. But even me, with my, like, limited ability of, like, watching them and everything, and limited criticisms of films and whatnot, even I found a bunch of stuff that was like, what are they doing? And like, why this? That kind of stuff. And I guess they're more baffling now. Like, I don't hate them as much, but, like, they're more baffling. And frustrating, and the redeeming quality to them, I will say, is, like, because, like, yeah, they're bad for Star Wars movies, and even as just movies, they're not great. They're not even really that good, but they're not, like, in the groupings of, like, worst movies I've seen, because I know a lot of people will say, like, well, it's just because of the strong license and because of the budget and everyone behind it and everything, it should have been way better. It should have been better. And yes, it's pretty bad for a Star Wars movie. But, or they're all pretty bad for Star Wars movies. But I've seen movies that are much worse. I've seen movies that are just not fun to watch. There's no entertainment value. There's nothing to engage me. And in the prequels, there's at least stuff like, there's the interest of, like, let's try to build the mythology a bit. Let's try to look into this stuff. of the Star Wars universe. Let's see all the cool, you know, fight scenes and stuff, and the cool worlds and all that is, or at least neat for the special effects, and like, I don't know, the idea that you think about it, you know, even like something like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, you're like, you think about it. You don't just watch it and be like, that sucked, you know, and not think about it. You think about, like, why is this so weird, and like, why is it the way that it is? And like, prequels are the same kind of thing, where like, it's just like, they're too interesting. They make me think too much. I mean, not the way they probably would want me to, but they make me think too much for me to be like, no, there's like nothing, like, they're terrible, there's nothing there, you know. So I'll give them that much credit. And I think that's pretty much everything, except for me just rambling, stumbling over one or two points I may have missed that I'll remember a few days from now. But yeah, whenever this goes up, it goes up, I guess. I am actually at this point recording, or not recording, but like watching stuff. I'm trying to get through the Clone Wars stuff. I just watched the movie, I guess, and then started watching the show. I've only got a short period of time to watch that right now before it's off of Netflix. But I'll be watching that, and if I get it done and everything, I'll be putting out another video kind of like this on that if you guys are interested. I hope I didn't spoil too much stuff for you that you didn't already know that you wanted to know, but you've been warned. I'll probably do that in that one too. If there's anything you think I really missed or something, you know, and things that you want to bring up or just discuss things, like, totally in the comments, we can have fun with that. I just thought this would be a fun excuse to get me to watch the Star Wars movies again, because this way I get to really think about them, and making a video about it does make me think, like, okay, well, I should probably think about what I want to say and think about these, and rather than just put them on and have them happen in front of my face and not think about them, as I usually do with many a movie. So hopefully this was somehow relaxing or entertaining or somehow enjoyable to someone out there at some point. So yeah, do the likes and the dislikes and all the comment stuff you want, and subscribe if you haven't, or unsubscribe if you was that bad, or if you're not subscribed but it wasn't good enough to make you subscribe, well, you go ahead and just stay not subscribed, because, you know, like, that's your choice, man. I think that's everything. I wish I had a better way to end this, but I didn't have any great pearls of wisdom. Go watch the Blanket reviews. They'll tell you more about it than I can, and more efficiently, you know, louder, and they're funny. I just kind of said shit. Weird to put this on the end of this, I guess. Not a really good visual setup or anything. I just wanted to add in this last part, though. Should be the final section to the whole Star Wars ASMR thing. So I wanted to add that quickly. I gave up on watching Clone Wars. I just wasn't super interested in the show, so I stopped. I'm just not doing it now, and motivation for that's gone, and it's going to be going away anyway, so I probably wouldn't be able to finish it, so whatever. Also, I guess I kind of thought of this other little thing about the comparison between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy is the reason that Jedi seem cool, I guess. Why it's kind of a cool thing. The Jedi and the Force and all that is cool in... Sorry, you can see the reflection in my glasses, great. Is that it's like... I guess it's creepy in the prequels because it's like... It's kind of like a super organized religion, albeit a magical space religion, but still, it's like a weird, like, cultish, really organized religion. And so it's very strict, and they're following this doctrine, following these, you know, very specific rules of how to be a Jedi. And I think that's why it's so, like, disorienting, and so, like, it just isn't very appealing. It feels just kind of gross and creepy. And it's like, wow, like, you mean this kid who was raised by a bunch of, like, weirdo dudes like that, like, yeah, and was just been brainwashed since he, basically since he was a little kid. Yeah, he had problems. Gee, I wonder why. It's weird, and like, it. I think that's why that seems so weird there. It's just like it's very restrictive and creepy and cultish. Whereas, in like the original trilogy, it's like, that stuff's already been gone for like years. And like, yeah, Yoda was part of it, but Yoda's not telling Luke these very strict things of what he should do and how he should be all the time, really. He is basically giving him suggestions. Luke isn't like following it and trying to follow it to a T either. He's kind of trying to understand it rather than follow it, and it's cool because it's like it's the lessons, it's the morals, and it's like, basically the stuff that you're supposed to be getting out of like a religion. I feel like, rather than feeling like it's just some weird strict path to follow, it's more like it's a way to help guide your life. And so it feels like he just gets these cool lessons and he learns things, and like it's about understanding more than us just being, following a structure. And I think that's why it seems kind of like also kind of cool. I guess that plus the fact that it's not like, it's not everywhere. It's not like a bunch of people are doing it. There's not a big weird order of Jedi or anything anymore. They're just kind of like, yeah, we're going to disband and we're nothing now. And like it's not like a big thing with any weight anymore. It's just kind of like there are some left that kind of believe this stuff, but like it doesn't feel like it's in the forefront, or that, necessarily that being a Jedi is the be all end all, that's gonna save the day, that's gonna be good and be enough. So I know I just had that thought and I wanted to share that, as well as clear up that I'm not going to be doing the Clone Wars thing, because I watched the movie, a few episodes of this show, and I was like, I don't care. I just don't care enough. Basically, to give you a summation of the movie, what I saw, just a quick summary, because I don't want to go into the whole thing. I just don't care enough right now. But I will say that it was at least coherent. It made sense. It was not a big old clusterfuck like the prequels, but it didn't make me really think. It didn't make me real active during it, I wasn't like, wondering people's motivations or what was going on, or comparison, doing comparison stuff necessarily as much. I did a bit, but, I will say that at least the prequels made me think a little more, even if it wasn't for the best reasons. It still kept me a little more engaged on some level. And Clone Wars was just kind of boring and didn't really feel like it meant a whole lot, and then it just ended, and it was clearly just, it was like a pilot for a TV show. So, oh well. Sorry if you guys were looking forward to that when I mentioned it, but it's probably not happening now for me to watch that, so sorry. I just wanted to get all this out there, wrap this up. And if you guys want to see more stuff like this, not on Star Wars. Like, I have some Star Trek movies I might do this kind of thing with. I have some other movie packs or something I could do it with if you guys are interested. Or if not, I might just not ever do it again, and it's just a one-off thing that hopefully did something for someone. So yeah, have a great day.